Chapter 708. The Lord of the Sun Moon has finally shown himself. Gu Chensha said, that bright light just now was the power of the sun and moon, the sun and moon great thousand. The power of the two worlds worked together and suddenly gathered together. They had suddenly gathered together, and in a single move, they had seized the opportunity to rescue this group of people. But according to my calculations, the Lord of the Sun Moon's cultivation isn't that high, and his cultivation is far from that of a celestial master. He can only use very little of the sun and moon great thousands power. If he is a celestial master, then we probably won't be his match. This is the power of the Lord of the Sun Moon. He is much stronger than the Lord of Seven Stars. That's right, this is the aura of the Lord of the Sun Moon. Zhuge also appeared here. His cultivation had reached the Tao realm 32 transformation, one thought to connect to heaven. He was just one step away from the Tao realm 33 transformation, the true Saint Heart, which was the legendary saint. Once Zhuge became a sage, his cultivation, battle power, and calculation ability would once again rise to an extremely tyrannical level. Furthermore, as the Lord of Seven Stars, he was the king of all stars. Before the Lord of the Sun and Moon had appeared, the Lord of Seven Stars was the absolute king. So, he was very sensitive to the Lord of the Sun and Moon's aura. It was as if the Lord of the Sun and Moon had appeared and could even suppress him. The Lord of the Sun Moon has appeared. He used the power of the Sun and Moon great thousand to take these people away. If he subdues all of them, then his faction will be close to a large sect like Black Cosmos sect, or even surpass it. Right now, apart from Chang Wei-Yong, Black Cosmos sect doesn't have a second saint. They do have a few god rank experts, more than 20 of them, which surpasses the legalists. Gu Qinsha was really calm. He didn't seem sad at all. Instead, he was a little happy. That was because he finally knew that the Lord of the Sun Moon's true strength was still within his control. If he became a god rank expert, he could grasp this karma and lock onto the Lord of the Sun Moon's location. He would have nowhere to hide. Even an old-timer like Wan Senshi couldn't divine the whereabouts of the Sun Moon Lord. However, Gu Chansha was able to do so because he had cultivated the heavenly Tao arts. In a sense, the heavenly Tao arts were even more profound than the Sun Moon Lords. It was just that Gu Chinch's cultivation level had yet to reach the divine level, and the heavenly Tao arts would always have obstacles. If the heavenly Tao was perfected, he would be able to find the whereabouts of the Sun Moon Lord. If the Lord of the Sun Moon had remained hidden and not made a move, Gu Qinsha would not have been able to do anything to him. But now that the Lord of the Sun Moon had made a move, the two of them had established a karmic connection. Grasping this karma, Gu Qinsha could do many things. In the Buddhist sect, there was a technique called karma and fate. It was a secret technique that allowed one to lock onto one's enemy, entangle them, and finally purify them. This secret technique had been comprehended by Gu Qinsha himself. He had fused it with the Son of Heaven investiture art and the great God slaughtering art, making it even more profound. He would definitely be able to determine the victor between him and the Lord of the Sun Moon. The Lord of the Sun Moon is no small matter. In a sense, although he hasn't achieved great things and is truly invincible, his potential is much more terrifying than Wan Senshi and Immortal Master. Now that he has descended into this world, he will definitely come out to stir up trouble. We have another great enemy. This time, he saved these people. It is clear that he wants to establish his own force, and then enter the divine prefecture to seize the country's providence. We have to guard against him. Longevity God said. Longevity God originally wanted to take in Taoist calming chaos, but now that his plan had failed, he was somewhat disappointed. He knew that if Taoist calming chaos sincerely joined calming Immortal Sea, he could increase calming Immortal Sea's strength by a lot. He might even gain a small thousand world. He knew very well how powerful Taoist calming chaos was. It's fun when there are enemies. Gu Chensha narrowed his eyes. Always fighting with Dharma Saint, Wan Senshi, Immortal Master, The 3 celestial venerables and some other old fogies is too tiring. It's better to change to a new person, especially the Lord of the Sun Moon. He is clearly opposing our calming immortal department. He actually stole our prisoners, which is a violation of the Imperial Court's laws. I won't let him off easily. In fact, even if I don't find him, he will find me, because I have cultivated the heavenly Taos. For him, I am a tonic that he must devour. If he devoured me, he would be able to sever everything, escape the control of the Tao of Heaven, and escape the fate of being the Lord of the Sun and Moon. He would also be able to reap great rewards. He had been born because he had completed some sort of mission, and was born because of the Great Tribulation. To enjoy great providence comes with great karma. Only by devouring me can he enjoy great providence without any responsibility. Therefore, I am the biggest bait. Qinsha, how do you plan to deal with the Lord of the Sun Moon? Lu Baiwei asked. You have to be careful. The Lord of the Sun Moon can use the power of the Sun and Moon worlds. Even if it's a small portion, it is still the power of the world. Just now, King's power contained a bit of the Qian power, but it was only a billionth of the Qian world strength. Even I found it really unbearable. If he wasn't the son of the Qian, I would have captured him. Even if he was at Tao Realm 35, Transformation Desolate Dust Realm. The Great Massacre God Art is really mysterious. It is understandable that it can continuously produce Xiantian astral energy and magic power, but now it can also produce so many worlds. I really didn't expect that. Zhuge Yu was really intelligent and cultivated the Great Massacre God Art. However, he didn't comprehend the true essence of it, so he was unable to self-destruct his own world and then give birth to new worlds. In the calming celestial department, the few giants all cultivated the Great Massacre God Art and comprehended it. They understood some of the theories, but they were unable to do what Lu Baiwei did. Who knew what kind of body Lu Baiwei had? It was filled with a mysterious feeling. With a slight movement, her spirit would struggle in all sorts of dimensions, breaking through the ancient times and exploding with thousands of transformations. She would toss out her own world, and with a thought, a brand new world would be formed. In the end, these worlds would be as dense as stars. As long as they wrapped around someone, even King Descending would die. Even King Descending wouldn't be able to be wrapped up by thousands of worlds and self-destruct at the same time, unless he became a celestial venerable. Lu Baiyue's current battle was really terrifying. With this war god in the calming celestial department, the world's luck increased by a lot. As long as the people of the calming celestial department stepped into the deity level, they would all have their own unique skills. This is Father's method of suppressing the world. Gu Qinsha said, let's not talk about him. Each of us has our own reasons. The Lord of the Sun Moon is also proficient in transformations. You guys can't detect him at all. Only I can use the heavenly Tao art to spy on his traces. Be careful. He might sneak into our ranks and stir up trouble, just like I did in the past, stirring up chaos in any power. If you didn't have the heavenly Tao art to detect the Lord of the Sun Moon, I'm afraid our calming celestial department wouldn't have been able to escape the storm. I finally understand why you've been able to take advantage of the Dharma Saint and won Senshi time and time again. That's because those old fogies have a headache over you and can't detect you. One Senshi wants to use Yuhuan Lu to force you to reveal your traces, but it's a pity that it's all in vain. Lu Baiwei said, now that the world is stable, I think we can launch a counterattack against the demons. The Human Dragon League's power is growing stronger and stronger. With Yi Guang, Yi Dark, and Yi Hun overseeing things, and our support, their foundation has been stabilized. The demons won't be able to invade. Add to that the support of the Commander-in-Chief and the King of Common Life, and the Imperial Court is completely united. Even a Heavenly Designer Institute can't touch them. At this time, I think we should launch an attack on the demons first. We should strike first, break the demons' offensive, and delay the devil disaster. This is very necessary. The longer we wait, the more benefits we will gain. That's right. Zhuge also agreed. Since ancient times, when the devil disaster broke out and the demons attacked, the humans were always on the defensive. They had never taken the initiative to attack the devil domain. Now that we are leading the people of the world to launch a counterattack, we can take the initiative. Moreover, many demons have gathered in the devil domain, and the minor chiliocosms are connected together. In the past, they were an undefeatable force. But now that we have cultivated a medium-grade world and subdued Go-Chun to become the king of common life, we can defeat those demons. For example, the dwarf demon race, the blood demon race, the goat demon race, and the ox demon race. We can capture all of them, sacrifice them, and feed them to the world tree. Then, the world tree will give birth to endless treasures, pills, and fruits. Every time we attack the demons, we can plunder them and enrich our calming immortal department's resources. This way, the imperial court's wealth can increase by 1,000 times. We can even produce more commander-in-chief. The demons also have many resources and primordial treasures. That's right, Gu Qinsha said. Even if we don't create a commander-in-chief, creating a commander-in-chief would be a good thing. Gu Qinsha said, I absorbed all of the knowledge of the Buddhist civilization, as well as the knowledge of the epic cruiser and the memories of the various potentates. Thanks to that, I was able to create a complete system of magistrates. I can absorb the souls, flesh, and blood of the devils, as well as all sorts of treasures from primeval times. Then the world tree will give birth to the common people minor official, apostle, common people god general, common people marshal, and common people monarch. These puppets will understand government affairs and will never tire. They will be impartial, and will forever resolve the problems of the common people. Once this bureaucratic system is successfully built, the imperial court will step into a new era. Think about it. If all the officials, from the lowly officials to the kings, are made up of these puppets, how many times more efficient will it be? Important notice. This is a free app with no ads, no errors, and fast updates. Members can synchronize their bookshelves. Text size and brightness can be adjusted to provide a better reading experience. Please follow us on WeChat. Appxid. Hold down for 3 seconds to copy. Download the free reader. Chapter 709. The Calming Xian department was now fully fledged. The imperial court had 360 common people's generals who were at the Dao Realm 29 transformation, who were at the True Dragon Technique Grade 5. They were comparable to natural saints and were also supported by luck. In other words, the imperial court of Great Yone was managed by 360 experts who were at the level of natural saints. With so many people working together to govern the country without any selfish motives, naturally, the country would prosper and there would be no flaws. In truth, in terms of managing a country, these common people's generals were even more reliable than natural saints. This was because even natural saints had their own interests and thoughts. It was impossible for them to work together. For example, if there were 360 people like Fa Wuxian, not only would the imperial court not become better, but it would also become a mess. Thinking about the 360 Fa Wuxian in the imperial court, all of them were arrogant and untamed, fighting for power and disregarding the people of the world. How would the world be governed then? It would definitely break apart, and the people would have no way of making a living. This was why talent wasn't important. Unity was the most important thing. Talents that weren't united would instead be the source of destruction. Ever since Gu Qinsha became the general of the people, he had a deeper understanding of order, power, foundation, fate, destiny, unity, heaven, and earth. This was why he wanted to adjust the way of ruling a country and not just increase resources and strength for the world. Resources, the hearts of the people, all of these things had to be adjusted and changed. Only then would the country and the imperial court become more perfect. Until now, the Calming Xian department was still focusing on the supply of resources. The world tree in the common people's wish sphere produced all sorts of pills, flying swords, and armor. The so-called human dragon 3-piece set. Of course, the Calming Xian department also received training from the Common People's Wish Academy to spread knowledge and ideals. However, the strength of the academy was far inferior to the speed of the development of resources. Even if the Calming Xian department wanted to adjust, there was nothing they could do. This was because even if the calming Xian department didn't produce resources, the Heavenly Craftsman Academy would immediately erupt to fight for the market and the hearts of the people. Fortunately, at the most crucial moment, Gu Chunsha emerged victorious in his battle with the Dharma Saint. He sealed the heavily injured North Star, allowing the North Star to cultivate into the celestial venerable realm king of common life, stabilizing the situation. The king of common life, these great commanders of common life, the two-dimensional realms, and even the various big shots of the Celestial Commerce Department had already become a massive influence that could compare with the three Empyreans. However, the appearance of the Lord of the Sun and Moon still made her feel like there was a thorn in her back. Therefore, the Tranquil Immortal Department had to break this stalemate. The key to breaking the deadlock was still the Devil Race. The battle between spirits and demons, the invasion of the demon race, the confrontation between humans and demons, the great war between gods and demons, the entanglement of immortals and demons, and the descent of demons. This was the mutual ebb and flow of yin and yang between heaven and earth. Any fortuitous encounter was born under this general trend. This was also a kind of tide, the tide of yin and yang, the tide of good and evil, the tide of order and chaos. Every time the tide came, it was a tribulation, but also an opportunity. The Tranquil Immortal Department decided to be the one who set the tide. They would take the initiative to attack the Devil Race, plunder their vast resources, kill countless demons, and turn these demons into nutrients for the World Tree. From the World Tree, extremely intelligent puppets would be born. No, this shouldn't be called puppets. They should be called archons. What the Heavenly Talisman Emperor hadn't done yet, the Tranquil Immortal Department would do. Many of the big shots of the Celestial Commerce Department discussed. This counterattack against the Devil Race would definitely not be an ordinary war. It was very likely to be a major movement that would reverse the balance of yin and yang between heaven and earth. Gu Qinsha also approved of such a move. The Tranquil Immortal Department was fully fledged. It was time to expand. If they didn't expand, the Lord of the Sun and Moon would gradually force their way in. Although the Tranquil Immortal Department was currently glorious, it would still end up with a grievance. Gu Chansha could sense that the cultivation of the Lord of the Sun and Moon hadn't broken through a certain bottleneck. Once he did, the Tranquil Immortal Department would definitely not be able to contend against him. If I cultivate to the deity realm, I can suppress the Lord of the Sun and Moon first and devour him to reach the Grand Perfection realm. But now my cultivation is still not high enough. I can't deduce the whereabouts of the Lord of the Sun and Moon and his cultivation. But I can vaguely sense that this kid is somewhere between the deity realm and saint realm. He hasn't reached a higher realm. The Tao realm is about the same as the 30th to 32nd transformations. If he becomes a saint, he can use the power of the sun and moon great thousand worlds to destroy a medium-sized world. Gu Chunsha continued to deduce and practice in his heart. Right now, his greatest reliance was his own heavenly Tao. It was a level higher than the Lord of the Sun and Moon. The Lord of the Sun and Moon couldn't deduce his existence, but he could. Even the majestic sun and moon in the sky were under the control of the heavenly Tao. While the Tranquil Immortal Department was discussing important matters, the situation of the world underwent a new round of changes. In the depths of the martial Saint Grotto Heaven, Emperor Wu was cultivating. During these years, he had been reborn and didn't come out to stir up trouble. Instead, he was silently accumulating strength. His divergent heart had once been refined by Gu Qinsha. Later, he had been saved by Immortal Master Wan, which had allowed him to recover. Immortal Master Wan had spent a great deal of effort on him, using multiple Khanate treasures and even using his own head to condense nomological laws. Not only had he completely recovered, but he had also improved greatly. Now, it was already the 32nd year of God Talisman. Time passed really quickly. The martial emperor cultivated bitterly. Boundless world energy revolved around his body. With a kacha sound, his world energy spread out, turning into a waterfall of quicksand. Each grain of quicksand seemed to contain a primordial aura. He finally broke through and reached the 35th transformation of Dao Realm, Minor Desolate Realm. Shoo! Emperor Wu opened his eyes, and a bright glow shot out from them. I'm just one realm away from being able to recover to my full strength. 36 transformations, embodiment transformation. Moreover, during these years, I faced many tribulations and didn't die. This shows that I am indeed fated. This time, I just need to rest for a while and have some fortuitous encounters. Then, I will be able to comprehend the heavenly sovereign Tao, which I couldn't even comprehend at my full strength. Once I become an heavenly sovereign, I'll be able to execute all sorts of plans. I have been invincible in my life, but I was actually taken advantage of by a small fry like Gu Qinsha. This is a huge humiliation. I want to imprison this kid and use a secret technique to torture him forever. I want him to beg for death, but he can't. Emperor Wu's hatred for Gu Qinsha was so deep that it couldn't be washed away. He had never suffered such humiliation before. He suffered losses at the hands of Gu Qinsha time and time again. As a dignified emperor, how could he tolerate it? Just cultivating alone isn't the right way. I have already cultivated to the 35th transformation of Minor Desolate Realm, and I can protect myself. I can roam around the Divine Prefecture and obtain fortuitous encounters. At the same time, I can take a look at the situation of the world. I don't believe that the Celestial Tranquility Department can maintain control in the face of such a huge change. Emperor Wu's divine sense moved, and he understood the entire situation of the martial Saint Grotto Heaven. With the help of Wan Senshi, Emperor Wu had complete control of the martial Saint Grotto Heaven. Even 1/3 of the control that Wu Dangkong had been taken away. Now, the martial Saint Grotto Heaven was Emperor Wu's small world. King Wu Yu and the others all submitted to Emperor Wu. Right now, there were only 8 deity-level experts in the Wu clan's martial Saint Grotto Heaven. It could be said that the Wu clan was lacking in talents and was far from being comparable to the Legalism School. Originally, the Legalism School had 13 deity-level experts, while the Wu clan had 9. They could also become an overlord in the Divine Continent. However, after the return of the Legalism School's Dharma Saint, he created a medium-sized world and formed an alliance with the heavenly devil race. The experts in the Legalism School were immediately nurtured to become extremely powerful. Meanwhile, the Wu clan had suffered great losses from Gu Qinsha's plundering. Even the deity-level expert, Wu Pagong, had been converted into righteous merit and had lost all of his descendants. It could be said that the Wu clan was scattered and scattered. Fortunately, Emperor Wu had become the person in charge and had latched onto Wan Senshi's thigh. Only then could the Wu clan slowly recover. After scanning the entire martial Saint Grotto Heaven with his thoughts, Emperor Wu nodded in satisfaction. It was because King Wu Yu and the other deity-level experts were diligently cultivating, working, managing, and nurturing the Wu clan's disciples. In the past, King Wu Yu and the others were all high and mighty as ancestors. Even the Wu clan's upper echelon would find it hard to come into contact with these ancestors. They would only care about their own cultivation and would not think of ways to nurture disciples with lower cultivation levels. Now, Emperor Wu had ordered them to manage the Wu clan. This way, the Wu clan would be able to truly consolidate its foundation and nurture its foundation. Only by expanding its foundation and stabilizing its foundation would there be more opportunities for experts and geniuses to be born. Moreover, Emperor Wu had grasped the dragon nurturing mental cultivation technique and had already started to rebuild the Dragon Transformation Pagoda. This allowed the Wu clan's disciples to improve by leaps and bounds. After everything was arranged, Emperor Wu exited the martial Saint Grotto Heaven. He turned into a middle-aged man dressed in luxurious brocade clothes and landed on the martial region. Originally, the entire martial region was basically under the Wu clan's control. However, ever since the Imperial Court's conference, the Wu clan failed to force the emperor to abdicate and was liquidated by the Imperial Court. Now, there was basically no Wu clan's property in the martial region. Even the 5 mountains, Yangwu Mountain, Origin Wu Mountain, True Wu Mountain, Martial Transformation Mountain, and Extreme Wu Mountain, had been seized by the imperial court. Most of them had been sealed up by the imperial court. Now, 4 of the 5 mountains had been stationed by the imperial court, and they had become official forests. Exotic flowers, rare herbs, and rare species were planted in them as resources. They had also become a martial arts arena for the imperial court to train officials. These 5 mountains were condensed by the martial saint. After the Wu clan had managed them for 7 or 8,000 years, each mountain contained a massive amount of celestial spirit qi and martial Dao aura. Even if a mortal went to the 5 mountains to cultivate the martial Dao, they would be influenced by this atmosphere and cultivate very quickly. Only True Wu Mountain was still occupied by the Wu clan's disciples. However, most of the Wu clan's disciples were trembling with fear and did not dare to go against the imperial court. They had all hidden in the minor Kiliacosm. Disgrace, disgrace. Emperor Wu was at the foot of the mountain. When he saw the current situation of the 5 Wu clan mountains, his heart was burning with fury. The mobile app that everyone has been looking forward to is finally online. The app supports offline reading. There are no advertisements. Millions of books are free to read. Font and brightness adjustment, night mode, reading progress memory, and many other powerful functions. Please follow the official WeChat account to download the app. Geja Jinksin. Press and hold for 3 seconds to copy. Chapter 710. At the end of the day, the martial emperor was also a member of the Wu family. The Yang Wu Mountain, Yuan Wu Mountain, True Martial Mountain, Martial Transformation Mountain, and Extreme Martial Mountain were the foundations of the Wu clan. Now that he was the actual controller of the Wu clan, if the 5 mountains were given to him, he could definitely go one step further and become the foundation of suppressing the Wu province. These 5 mountains towered in the center of the martial province, shaped like a palm that seemed to support the heavens. This kind of momentum represented the glory of the Wu family. In truth, this was more like an array. In the most critical moment, the palm formed by the 5 mountains would be used by all members of the Wu family to activate the power left behind by the martial saint in ancient times and the Wu family's minor Kiliacosm. It could even release power to temporarily resist a heavenly venerate's attack. Now, all of this had fallen into the hands of the imperial court. Although the martial saint's paradise still existed, the minor Kiliacosm that was separated from the 5 mountains was like water without a root. It would be difficult for it to achieve anything great. It must be known that the disciples of the Wu family born in the minor Kiliacosm could not compare to the disciples born in the divine mainland. Since ancient times, the most powerful figures in the world had basically been born in the divine mainland. Even the 72 sects of the immortal Tao had to come to the divine central continent to recruit disciples. Otherwise, they would slowly weaken and not produce any talents. Any disciple born in the divine central continent would always have a unique temperament and power. As long as they awakened, they would develop some mysterious power and comprehension. This was a legend that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. Therefore, if the Wu family did not establish a foundation in the divine mainland and only relied on the minor Kiliacosm, they could still hold on for a short period of time. But as time passed, they would slowly weaken. The martial emperor wanted to take back the 5 mountains of the Wu family, but he restrained himself. He knew that with his own strength, it was impossible to accomplish this. Even Wan Senshi, who supported him, would probably be in danger and would have to wait for an opportunity. The martial emperor did not ignore everything while cultivating in seclusion. He knew all the big news, such as the Dharma saints suffering a great loss at the hands of Gu Qinsha, and Wan Senshi's new divine land had been plundered by Gu Qinsha, causing him to lose all face. Gu Qinsha's current strength could dominate the divine mainland, even the 4 wilds, and every plane and world. With such momentum, even if he became a celestial venerable, he would not be able to defeat the tranquil immortal department. The Wu province was the place where I was born, and also the place where I originated. Using this place as my foundation, I raised my army and swept through the 99 provinces, finally unifying the world, establishing my great cause, and establishing the Great Wu Empire. Unfortunately, it's impossible to control the Martial Province today. Martial Emperor walked into Martial Prefecture City and observed the city's atmosphere. Originally, Wuzhou City had an extremely tall city wall, which was built by Emperor Wu himself. It was built with molten iron and boulders, which could resist the invasion of the chaotic army. It could be said to be impregnable, but now, all of them had been demolished. Wuzhou City had no city walls, and instead, some high-rise buildings rose from the ground. Wuzhou City had been expanded several times, and the roads were extremely wide. They were all paved with stone mud. The hardness of the stone mud was close to that of steel. Even if a sword were to cut it, it would leave a slight mark on it. In the distance, there were many huge steel tracks extending into the distance. Occasionally, huge steel carriages spewing intense flames could be seen. They looked like centipedes as they whizzed along the steel tracks at shocking speed. Apart from that, there were also large spaceships and airships taking off and landing in the sky, carrying people into the distance. The city was very lively. There was an endless stream of horses and carriages, and even the ordinary people were strong and powerful. Men and women worshipped martial arts, and everyone's faces were full of vigor and vitality, making the entire city very lively and prosperous. Apart from that, one could see Dao Realm experts on the streets at any time. Over the years, there had been more and more Dao Realm experts among the people of Yonko. However, they were not overflowing as the population base was also expanding. The Tranquil Immortal Department had implemented a birth control policy, and it was continuously carried out. The population had exploded, and there were many newborns every year. Moreover, these newborns were well taken care of by the Tranquil Immortal Department. They were educated, nurtured, learned, and cultivated. After a few more decades, when the newborns grew up and the people of the world changed, the ideals of the Tranquil Immortal Department would be firmly established. They would be deeply rooted and could no longer be shaken. But as a few people wearing iron armor descended from the sky, their armor spat out flames, and they drew long tails in the sky. Their speed far exceeded that of cultivators who had reached the 7th transformation. Just in terms of flying speed, they were comparable to cultivators at the 9th transformation, the glass body. They landed lightly on the square in the city. The iron armor on their bodies started to shrink, turning into an iron box that they carried on their backs. This is the violent steel battle armor produced by the Celestial Designer Department. It is purely powered by machinery and doesn't use any techniques or spiritual power. Although it isn't as good as the human dragon armor, it is cheap. As long as I work hard to save money, I will be able to buy such armor sooner or later. Right, this armor's defense is really tough and it flies really fast. When we face the demon race, we can activate it. Along with guns, we can kill demons below the 5th transformation. These few people are disciples of the big families in the city. They bought the violent steel battle armor and went out to kill the demon race. It seems like they have gained a lot. Didn't some wandering devils appear in a village hundreds of kilometers away a few days ago? It seems like they have been wiped out by them. Looking at how arrogant they are, they must have obtained many benefits. The demon race's entire body is precious, and even demonic energy can be used as fertilizer. Moreover, the demon race's souls can be refined into many treasures and pills. Look at that kid. He was lazy and had no talent in martial arts, but he actually bought some genetic evolution medicine from the Celestial Designer Department and injected it into him. He became an expert comparable to someone at the 3rd transformation. The Celestial Designer Department's medicine is really amazing. But I heard that anyone who injected that genetic evolution medicine would have their meridians and dantian destroyed. They wouldn't be able to absorb spiritual energy and wouldn't be able to cultivate. This means that if they want to improve in the future, they have to buy higher-grade genetic evolution medicine. This means that their cultivation path will be in the hands of the Celestial Designer Department. They won't be able to become the strongest by themselves. Forget it. Of course that is the case, but think about it. It is extremely difficult to cultivate to the Tao realm, much less the 3 transformations. How much hard work does one have to put in? How much mental torture and how much comprehension does one have to go through? One even has to have a lot of luck to reach such a realm. How can it be as simple as injecting it? That makes sense. I don't have money, but if I did, I would buy the genetic evolution medicine and reach the 3rd transformation. Then, I would kill the demon race to exchange for wealth and then buy the next stage of medicine. The things that the Celestial Designer Department created are really cheap. Calming Xian Department's things are good, but they are too expensive. Calming Xian Department has been creating some mechanical weapons, but they aren't as exquisite as the ones from the Celestial Designer Department. Let's take a look first. The world is still controlled by Calming Xian Department. Our Wuzhou Governor Han Wuqin's cultivation has reached the Tao realm, 18 transformation, Great Tao, Golden Core realm. His son-in-law Chang Wuziu is the reincarnation of Wuziu Star Lord and is one of the overlords in Calming Xian Department. Moreover, the Wu family in Wuzhou has been chased out. With the help of the Common People's commander, Han Wuqin has built many Common People's wish academies in Wuzhou. All the students have been taught by Calming Xian Department. Many people were in deep discussion. All of these discussions fell into the Emperor Wu's heart. His heart sank deeper and deeper like it was about to fall into a bottomless abyss. Originally, he came to travel among the common people for 2 reasons. The first was to obtain fortuitous encounters, and the second was to see what kind of opportunities he could find in this world. He wanted to bring about a wave of upheaval and make the calming immortal department flustered. In this way, he could establish a great banner and once again restore the glory of a monarch who ruled over the world. But now, just looking at the people in Wuzhou, they were basically in despair. Right now, the world was flourishing and there was no way for them to cause chaos. The management of Calming Xian Department ranged from the royal court to the grassroots level. Every county, every town, every village, every household had their own people. As the martial emperor walked down the street, he looked at the shops around him. There were medicinal pills, weapons, armor, all sorts of food and drink, clothing, silk satin, and even books. There was also the school of the Celestial Calmness Department, where countless students practiced martial arts with great vigor. There were no beggars on the street, nor were there any hoodlums or gangs. There were no more underground gangs or evil cults. Actually, no matter which dynasty or which city it was, there would always be beggars, hoodlums, underground gangs, and evil cults. But now, Yanko basically no longer existed. After Heavenly Talisman Immortal Emperor established his country, he first abolished the obscene worship and sealed the gods. After that, he purged the world. After the Calming Xian Department was established, he swept through the immortal, devil, and demon paths. After that, he ruthlessly suppressed the aristocratic families and used the common people's commander to manage the common people. Finally, the world became more and more unified, becoming an iron plate. After a series of observations, as well as using the Qi divination art to observe the fate of the country, the Emperor Wu's heart had already turned cold. Emperor Wu, are you in despair? At this moment, a voice rang out in the Emperor Wu's ears. The Emperor Wu turned around and saw a young man dressed like a scholar. He had a folding fan in his hand and exuded an indescribable sense of elegance. The Emperor Wu wanted to act, but he discovered that the world energy he secretly sent out seemed to have met with a majestic energy as vast as the sun and moon, completely dispelled. This humble one is Gu Tiansha. Could it be that Emperor Wu doesn't wish to chat with me? Important notice, this is a free app of this site. No advertisements, no errors, fast updates. Members can synchronize their bookshelves. Text size can be adjusted. Reading brightness can be adjusted to provide a better reading experience. Appsid, hold down for 3 seconds to copy. Download the free reader. Chapter 711. Gu Tiansha, the martial emperor, was startled. He felt that his surroundings had been sealed by this person who called himself Gu Tiansha. He could feel the power and might of the great thousand world. Worthy of your collection, You are the Sun Moon Lord." How intelligent was the martial emperor? He immediately understood. He was extremely fearful and had used his power to protect himself. "That's right. I am the Sun Moon Lord, but that's just one of my identities. My true identity is even higher than the Sun Moon Lord. I'm the strongest existence born from the conflict between the heavenly Tao and Gutaxian. It can be said that I'm the only one between heaven and earth. I just happen to be born with the help of the Sun Moon Lord's intent realm. My potential isn't something a mere Sun Moon Lord can compare to." Gu Tiansha didn't seem to attack the martial emperor because he knew that Wan Xinchi had spent a lot of effort to nurture the martial emperor. If he made a move, he would definitely attract Wan Xinchi's attention. In that case, it would be troublesome for Wan Xinchi to fight him. Even if Gu Tiansha could use the power of the Sun Moon Great Thousand World, it would still be dangerous if he fought with Wan Xinchi. After all, now that the heavenly Tao had fallen, any powerful existence would be in danger of falling. Even the heavenly Tao itself had been penetrated by Gu Taxian, causing all sorts of unbelievable changes. Therefore, Gu Tiansha would definitely not rashly go against an ancient and powerful existence like Wan Xinchi. In reality, although Wan Xinchi had suffered some losses in the hands of Gu Qinsha, that was because Gu Qinsha's heavenly Tao was ever-changing and he had colluded with a powerhouse like Xing Qiongshi. Xing Qiongshi's strength wasn't inferior to Wan Xinchi's. Moreover, this time, it was Wan Xinchi who established the new divine land, which gave Gu Qinsha a chance to test out the power of the 100th layer of the divine land secret technique. If Wan Xinchi hadn't formed the new divine land back then, Gu Qinsha probably wouldn't have been able to save Yuhuan Lu so easily. It was only with the help of the 100th layer of the divine land technique that Gu Qinsha was able to let Yuhuan Lu get rid of the shackles so easily and collect the new divine land. The 100th level of the divine land's body was beyond Wan Xinchi's imagination, and it was also an existence that Wan Xinchi could not resist. If Xing Qiongshi could really fuse himself with the central divine continent and become one with the divine continent, he would probably be able to kill 3 heavenly venerables with a single punch. Of course, Gu Qinsha's plan was for Xing Qiongshi to focus on giving up, but Xing Qiongshi couldn't do that. He still focused on himself and walked the path of devouring all things, not sacrificing himself to help all things. This meant that Xing Qiongshi would not be able to cultivate the divine continent's 100th layer. Gu Qinsha even felt that if he were to use the 100th layer of the divine land's body at the most critical moment, he could master the last move that Xing Qiongshi had yet to master and use it as his trump card. Xing Qiongshi perfected the divine continent great technique, and Gu Qinsha could use this technique to its limit. A true great perfection. Gu Tiansha, what exactly do you want? Martial Emperor asked. It's very simple. Join me, Gu Tiansha said. I'll give you benefits, and you'll abandon Wan Xinchi and work for me. This Martial Emperor had a prideful personality, and he almost thought that he was number one in the world. As the overlord of the divine land, how could he submit to someone? Gu Tiansha seemed to be easy to talk to, but he could actually kill him at any time. His intuition told him that he was far from being a match for the Sun Moon Lord. I've already planted Wan Xinchi's brand in my body. Wan Xinchi has spent many natural spirit treasures and primordial treasures on me, such as the beginning Emperor's seal and Emperor's life talismans. If I betray him, I'll probably die a horrible death. That's not a problem. I'll use the power of the Sun Moon Great Thousand to refine the brand that Wan Xinchi left in your body. That way, Wan Xinchi won't be able to control you. Of course, you'll need to cooperate during the refining process. I can even help you pour in the power of the Sun Moon Great Thousand to push your cultivation to the limit, the peak of the 36 changes of embodiment of embodiment. Gu Qinsha said, if I'm not wrong, you just cultivated the 35 changes of cosmic dust, and you'll need some fortuitous encounters to advance to the 36 changes. Without any fortuitous encounters, you'll probably need several decades. Don't be complacent with your current cultivation. You can't even deal with Lu Baiwei. What did you say? I can't deal with a mere junior? Martial Emperor seemed to have been greatly humiliated. See for yourself. At this time, a scene appeared with a flick of Gu Tianxia's fingers. In this scene, the battle between Liu Baiwei and Wang Chengshi was displayed. Liu Baiwei constantly manipulated the cosmic dust world, pressuring Wang Chengshi to the 35 changes of cosmic dust to the point where he couldn't even breathe. Martial Emperor felt his heart palpitate as he watched. This is the true power of the great massacre divine art. Only then did Martial Emperor deeply understand that they were both emperors and had also unified the divine continent. The difference between him and the heavenly talisman great emperor was like the difference between a speck of dust and a star. That's right, the great massacre divine art is an extremely profound existence. Only Liu Baiwei can successfully cultivate it. Of course, Gu Qinsha, who has cultivated the heavenly Tao art, will also be able to fully activate the great massacre divine art if he advances to the deity realm. He might even be able to display abilities that are even more terrifying than Liu Baiwei. That Wang Chengshi is the son of the great Kiliacosm of the mystical ability Great Kiliacosm. He has inherited a portion of the destiny of the mystical ability Great Kiliacosm. Gu Tianxia said, "If you fight with him, you might not be able to deal with him. Therefore, if you fight with Liu Baiwei, you'll definitely lose." How about it? Is the calming immortal department filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons that you can't deal with? If you rely on Wan Senshi, it'll be futile if you want to take revenge. Wan Senshi himself can't deal with the calming immortal department, but I've rescued Wang Chengshi from the hands of the calming immortal department. Tell me, should you submit to me or to Wan Senshi? Fine, I'm willing to submit to you and remove the mark that Wan Senshi left on me. I'm also not willing to be controlled by Wan Senshi. Of course, the most important thing is that Wan Senshi himself is already starting to feel helpless against the calming immortal department. If I want to take revenge, Wan Senshi won't be able to help me accomplish this important task. The martial emperor's expression became resolute, but in the depths of his heart, he definitely had other plans. Very well, I'll help you eliminate this hidden danger. Although Wan Senshi's forbidden technique is powerful, it's still not worth mentioning in front of the Sun-Moon Great Thousand Realms. Wan Senshi is only in the Sky Longevity Realm, so how can he compare to the Sun-Moon Great Thousand Realms of the Heaven Origin Realm? At this moment, Gu Tianxia waved his sleeve, and the world immediately spun. The Martial Emperor and him arrived at the center of the Martial Province, where the Yangwu Mountain, Yuanwu Mountain, True Martial Mountain, Martial Transformation Mountain, and Extreme Martial Mountain were located. At the very center of the 5 mountains, at the peak of True Martial Mountain, the 5 mountains had originally been accepted by the authorities. However, in order to leave a good impression on the outside world, the Calming Immortal Department had left a few palaces for the Wu clan, which were located at the peak of True Martial Mountain. Now, there were only a few Wu clan disciples guarding the palaces, and they were basically desolate. No one wanted to live in a desolate place without any resources. Swoosh! At this time, Gu Tianxia and Wan Senshi had already landed in the Martial Sacred Hall. The hall was very tall and wide, and in the depths of the hall stood a divine statue of the Martial Saint. In the past, the Martial Saint's sacred statue had been practically full of incense offerings. Countless Wu clan disciples had to offer sacrifices and pray every day. During the new year, they would even hold a grand ceremony. The ceremony was huge, and the entire Martial Province would be alarmed. Even the citizens of the Martial Province had to offer sacrifices to the Martial Saint. But now, in front of the Martial Saint's sacred statue, there was almost no incense offerings. I once had the world under my control, and the Martial Saint's incense offerings had once surpassed the legalists. But now, it has fallen to such a state. The Martial Emperor sighed. This is the method that the heavenly talisman Great the Arch used to seal the gods and abolish the sacrifices. The Department of Tranquility has also inherited this method. I will remove all the restrictions that Wan Senshi placed in your soul and body and allow you to collect the 5 mountains of the Wu clan, as well as the power of faith that has continued for thousands of years. I will even resurrect the martial saint to revitalize your Wu clan. Gu Tiansha's tone was as vast as the sky, as if there was nothing in the world that could stump him. The 5 mountains here can be collected as well. Won't it cause commotion? If the Department of Tranquility notices it, the martial emperor frowned. You don't have to worry about that. Gu Tiansha said, I have set up the power of the sun and moon, and it can definitely deceive the heavens. These 5 mountains were refined by the martial saint back in the day, and he even had many fortuitous encounters. He refined these 5 mountains to stabilize the Wu clan's luck, to make the Wu clan prosper, and to provide him with a large number of sacrifices. In the end, it allowed him to break free from the shackles of the heavenly Tao and be reborn. The power of these 5 mountains is extremely great, and they have already become one with the martial province. Even with your strength, you won't be able to collect them successfully. But I'm different. Use the power of these 5 mountains to enter your body, summon the martial saint, and completely resurrect him. Not only will your cultivation increase greatly, but you can also establish a passage to plunder some of Wan Senshi's power for yourself. Very well, I will follow the instructions of the Lord of the Sun and Moon. The martial emperor also knew that he couldn't beat the Lord of the Sun and Moon at this time. He could only wait for an opportunity to obtain benefits. Sit properly. The Lord of the Sun and Moon, Gu Tiansha, patted the martial emperor. Immediately, the martial emperor was enveloped by an invisible force. He couldn't help but be shocked. The martial emperor himself was an expert at the 35 transformations of dust, but in front of Gu Tiansha, he was like a child being played in the palm of the Lord of the Sun and Moon. This kind of depression was simply indescribable, but in the depths of his heart, he secretly plotted, as long as I can devour the Lord of the Sun and Moon, I can ascend to an unimaginable level, and breaking through to the celestial sovereign realm will be a piece of cake. All the magnates in the world are searching for the Lord of the Sun and Moon. Perhaps I can find many opportunities from there. Important notice, this is a free app of this site. No ads, no errors, fast updates, members synchronized bookshelves, text size adjustment, reading brightness adjustment, better reading experience. Please follow the official WeChat account. AppXid, hold down for 3 seconds to copy. Download the free reader. Chapter 712. Of course, the martial emperor knew that the Sun-Moon Lord also wanted to control him. It was the same plan as Wan Senshi. Even if he broke free from Wan Senshi, he would fall into the hands of the Sun-Moon Lord Gu Tiansha and end up worse than Wan Senshi. Fire? Then? Text? But he couldn't reject now, or else he would die. So, in the depths of his heart, he was thinking about how to benefit from both sides. If he could obtain benefits from both Wan Senshi and Gu Tiansha, then both of them would be heavily injured. Then, he would be able to break free and become an Empyrean. That would be for the best. Otherwise, he would be in big trouble. Fortune comes from danger. Time to go all out. A plan suddenly formed in the martial emperor's heart. At this moment, the Sun-Moon Lord Gu Tiansha had already started to activate the power of the Sun-Moon Great Thousand. The two of them sat facing each other, and then a bright moon and a great sun actually appeared above Gu Tiansha's head. The bright moon and great sun resonated with each other and circulated around each other, bringing with them boundless light. As they alternated, light and darkness overlapped, and the supreme profundity of the waxing and waning of the sun and moon appeared. Sun-Moon Great Thousand fuse into the body. 36 transformations, embodiment transformation. At this moment, Gu Tiansha pointed, and a wave of power entered the martial emperor's body. The martial emperor seemed to have consumed the king of Dan Kings, the king of innate spirit Dan. The power of the world inside his body suddenly skyrocketed. He seemed to have formed an inseparable connection with the space between heaven and earth, the countless dimensions, and the countless kingdoms. He could use all the forces in the world to create his own ideal existence. Using its power, he could achieve his own freedom. This was the embodiment transformation, the 30th transformation of Tao realm. This was the peak of the Tao realm. No one could do anything to him anymore. Boom! Between heaven and earth, countless Taoist magics flowed. Energy, origin power, and even primal chaos energy were being extracted, forming a sort of folded space and time around the martial emperor. In the depths of this folded space and time, all sorts of phenomena were being created, born and destroyed at any moment, as the martial emperor willed. Martial emperor borrowed the power of the Lord of the Sun and Moon, Gu Tiansha, and fused a trace of the power of the great thousand world into it. He finally reached the peak of his accumulation, reducing decades of bitter cultivation and breaking through to the next realm. He completely recovered his strength and even comprehended some things that he had not comprehended before. Back then, he had also been an expert at the 36 transformations. Now that he had been reborn, he had finally reached the 36 transformations. The feeling of his strength returning almost made his eyes brim with tears. My power has finally returned. Furthermore, I've encountered so many tribulations, and many times I barely made it out alive. Now, I'm blessed with a great life, and my merits and virtues are perfect. All that's left is to rise to the Empyrean level. If I can't even advance to the Empyrean realm, then there's really no justice in this world. Since ancient times, there have only been those who have passed through certain tribulations. Martial Emperor was almost 100% confident that he could advance to the Empyrean realm. However, he had to endure it now. He knew that the Lord of the Sun and Moon, Gu Tiansha, would not allow him to advance to the Empyrean realm. Once he became an Empyrean, even with Gu Tiansha's current strength, it would be very difficult to suppress and kill him. There would still be a high chance that he could escape. For example, the reason why Gu Tiansha could suppress the North Star continent was because the Dharma Saint had first set up a trap. He had expended a large amount of energy, causing the North Star continent's energy to be greatly damaged. The North Star continent could not even use a tenth of its cultivation. This was why Gu Tiansha had snatched it away and finally cultivated the king of all life. Suppressing the North Star continent was equivalent to the Dharma Saint and Gu Tiansha's two great powers. Only then did they succeed. The Dharma Saint had used the power of the Empyrean demon prison and the all-Dharma realm, as well as the power of Wu Donkong's heavenly sacrifice talisman. Then, Gu Tiansha had used the power of the king of all life's wish sphere and the Permitha golden mountain to completely suppress the North Star continent. Otherwise, how could it be so easy to suppress this Empyrean-level Grandmaster Myriad Demon? Even now, the North Star continents had not collapsed. It was still in a mysterious realm. In fact, if something happened in the future, it could even fight with the king of all life for control. Gu Tiansha also had to be very careful to prevent the North Star continents from counterattacking. Therefore, the current king of all life was not complete. It had not truly reached a realm where the spirit body was as one. If the North Star continents was destroyed, the king of all life would completely collapse and would not be able to condense a body. This was also what Gu Tiansha was afraid of. Thinking about it, after cultivating to become a sage, as long as one died, they would fuse with the heavenly Tao. If someone made a sacrifice later on, as long as the power of the sacrifice was enough, the sage would appear, much less a heavenly venerate. Celestial exalts were far above saints, and even if they were all killed, there would still be some remnants of their indestructible that would roam the world and fuse with some sort of essence. They wouldn't truly perish, and as long as there was an opportunity, they would be completely resurrected and regain their strength. For example, the Xing Qiongshi. In the past, he couldn't kill him no matter what. Very good. You used my strength to finally reach the Tao realm 36 transformations, embodiment transformation realm. Now, you need to try something else, which is to revive Martial Saint. Of course, it is very likely that the resurrected martial sage will start to break through to the heavenly venerate realm completely after his resurrection. Even I can't control it. Just like the warlock sage, the warlock sage will become a heavenly venerate once he is resurrected. Gu Qinsha said, "At that time, I will use the power of the sun and moon great thousand to suppress you and the martial saint into one. I will let you obtain the heaven venerate Tao. Then, your will shatter the heaven venerate Tao, and you will be able to break all of Wan Senti's restrictions. After shattering the heaven venerate Tao, your realm will drop. But with my help, your cultivation will totally stabilize, and you will comprehend your own heaven venerate Tao. At that time, you will truly be able to roam the world. Thank you, Sun and Moon Great Thousand, for nurturing me. I will definitely try my best to do things for you." Emperor Wu went against his conscience and praised. "Okay, let's start. Condense the martial saint." At that moment, Gu Qinsha actually stood up and started to worship the statue of the martial saint in the temple. But what kind of person was he? He was the Sun and Moon Great Thousand. In fact, it could be said that he was born from the conflict between the heavenly Tao and Gu Taxian. That was why he was called Gu Qinsha. This kind of person was a legend that had never appeared before. When such a person worshipped the martial saint, he could almost instantly gather endless power of worship for the martial saint, allowing the martial saint to condense again, separate from the heavenly Tao, and revive. Not to mention the master of the sun and the moon, even the reincarnated star god would have to pay a tremendous amount of worship power. Rumor had it that in the past, if a reincarnated star god worshipped the ghost god would avoid it. Even the god statue would collapse because it couldn't withstand the worship of such a person. The worship of the sun and moon Great Thousand was simply indescribable. Rumble. Just like that, the holy statue of the martial saint silently turned into powder and dust. However, a real martial sage had appeared in front of him. This martial saint had a tall stature and was clad in battle armor. When he stretched out his palms, it seemed as if he could tear the earth apart and pull the heavens apart. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the past and the future. His body contained the true essence of the martial Tao. He had once cut his way through brambles and thorns, fighting for the sake of humanity's self-improvement. He had created many secret techniques that allowed humanity to become stronger. If the Dharma Saint had created order for humanity and had great merit, then the martial saint had created the martial Tao for humanity. The martial saint had created the martial Tao for humanity so that humanity could survive. This was the greatest merit of the martial saint. The merit of the martial saint was even greater than that of the Dharma Saint. Now, he had been worshipped by Gu Qinsha. When the martial saint appeared, his aura completely covered the martial emperors. The martial emperor suddenly realized that he was still extremely small in front of the completely revived martial saint. This martial saint's aura and ideals carried the hope of humanity. The current martial saint was no longer the phantom that appeared when the worship was performed. He had been completely revived. The martial saint could only be revived because of the worship of the sun and moon Great Thousand. The identity of the sun and moon Great Thousand, Gu Qinsha, was too special and mysterious. Who knew how many secrets and fortunes were hidden on him? When these secrets and fortunes were gathered, they could completely revive the martial saint. Sun and moon Great Thousand. The moment the martial saint was revived, he looked at Gu Qinsha. "Only you can help me break free from the shackles of the heavenly Tao and revive. However, I can see ambition in your eyes. You want to devour the world and dominate the heavens. You are evil. Reviving me is not for the sake of humanity, but for your ambition. I can't be wrong about this. The sun and moon Great Thousand shouldn't be like this. It can be seen that the heavenly Tao has changed, and you're also a mutant." "Mutant?" Gu Tiansha laughed. "That's a very good way of describing it. I am indeed a xenogeneic. However, martial saint, your resurrection was all because of me. Therefore, I have absolute control over you. You cannot escape from the palm of my hand. Without my help, you can't be revived. Therefore, your strength is not as strong as the Dharma Saint. The Dharma Saint relied on himself to revive, but you can't. The Dharma Saint has already gone against his original intention. Our original intention is to protect humanity. We are humans to begin with. We walked out of millions of humans and became sages. Our responsibility is to lead more humans to reproduce and have the power to protect ourselves. This was the original intention of us sages. The Dharma Saint is no longer the Dharma Saint of the past. He is now in existence at the other extreme. The martial saint looked at Gu Chansha calmly without fear. The martial sage looked at the Lord of the Sun and Moon, Gu Tiansha. He was not afraid at all. He knew that even if he was resurrected now, he would still need some time to recover his strength. Furthermore, even if he recovered his strength, he would still be no match for Gu Tiansha. However, he was not afraid at all. His tone was very calm. It was as if he had already seen through life and death and did not care about his own survival. Therefore, I disdain to be associated with the warlock saint. Now that I have truly been resurrected, it may seem that it is your power on the surface, but in reality, this is also fate. In the unseen world, some kind of human will form a trace of fate that allowed me to be resurrected through your hands. Although the Dharma Saint's revival is part of his own plan, I don't want to revive for the sake of reviving. This is something that the Dharma Saint can't do. The Warlock Saint wants to be resurrected, but I don't care. I'm calmer than him. The free mobile phone reader was online. More than 1 million free reading. Smart bookshelf management. What you like will never be lost. Dedicated to creating a better reading experience. Come and follow my WeChat account. Press and hold for 3 seconds to copy. Download the free reader. Chapter 7:13. The martial sage knew that he was in extreme danger. However, he was not afraid. He had already seen through life and death. I'm impressed. Gu Tiansha clapped his hands and smiled. The martial sage is indeed the martial sage. From a certain point of view, your mentality has indeed surpassed the Dharma Saint. However, sometimes mentality is useless. Strength is strength. It will not change because of your mentality. Sir Martial Sage, I think you should merge with my body and strengthen me. After all, the blood of the Wu clan flows in my body. At this moment, the martial emperor knew that his best option was to devour the martial sage and strengthen himself. He knew that he was not as good as the martial sage. The martial sage's essence, qi, and spirit had the spirit of the ancestor of the martial Tao. This was something he could not have. Martial sage, you are the most accomplished disciple of the Wu clan. This is unquestionable. However, the bloodline of the Wu clan is not something that flows in the blood. It is the will to protect humanity with the martial Tao. Humanity's hope for survival is the martial Tao. Since ancient times, humans have to cultivate the martial Tao in order to survive. This is the will of the Wu clan. Only by comprehending this will one can truly inherit the bloodline of the Wu clan. Unfortunately, martial sage, you have lost the essence, qi, and spirit of the Wu clan. You have become a different species. Of course, I can't say that you are wrong. You have your own ideas, but I feel that it is a pity. The martial sage sighed. All right, that's all. The Sun Moon Lord Gu Tiansha said, then merge with the martial sage and become a powerful existence for my use. Sun Moon Lord, I'm afraid it won't be easy for you to deal with me like this. The martial sage placed his hands behind his back, and his aura rose. The Dharma Saint was reborn and could cultivate to become a heavenly lord. I can do the same. You underestimate the will and spirit of my martial Tao. After I fell, I merged with the heavenly Tao and wanted to peek into its secrets. My divine Tao is martial Tao. It is different from the Dharma Saint. The Dharma Saint is the absolute order, while I am the absolute one. Rumble. The martial sage's body emitted a domineering aura. This aura exploded violently, rushing into the heavens, exuding an unparalleled, supreme aura. Within this aura was a sense of desolation and solitude. It was the kind of solitude that came from strolling on the path of cultivation and evolution alone. The warrior sage finally revealed his sharp claws and fangs. A martial sage is a martial sage, after all. You borrowed my power to come back to life, and actually managed to break through to the heavenly venerate realm so quickly. Even if you become an Empyrean, it won't help anything. After all, you aren't the Dharma Saint. The Dharma Saint possesses the heavenly demon prison and the law world, two great dimensional realms. Even I can't do anything to him right now. And even if you become an Empyrean, you will still be a naked Empyrean. In truth, you won't be of much use. If you had a dimensional realm, then I wouldn't be able to use the power of the Sun-Moon Great Thousand before I reach the Sage Realm, and I wouldn't be able to break through your defenses. But now, you can't get any help. That might not be the case. The martial sage's palm bore the fate of the heavens. He spread his fingers and attacked fiercely, as if he wanted to grasp the starry world, boundless vital energy, and the true essence of immortal chi in his palm. Even the void was blasted into a void of darkness that didn't exist. This is a martial Tao legend. Gu Tiansha flicked his fingers. Immediately, the light of the sun and moon gathered and blocked the martial sage's punch. Then he put his hands in a circle and pressed down. Immediately, all of the martial sage's attacks were reduced to nothing. Any martial Tao was not worth mentioning in front of the light of the sun and moon. They disappeared without a trace. The vast sun and moon shook the universe. This was the power of Gu Tiansha, and it was also a never-before-seen method of the Lord of the Sun and Moon. Seal. After breaking the martial sage's attack, Gu Tiansha drew a circle in the air with his palm. Immediately, this circle enveloped the martial sage's body. The martial sage sat cross-legged inside the circle. Many figures radiated out from his body. These figures executed millions of martial arts, as if they had mastered all the martial Tao in the world. The martial Tao that these figures executed converged into a long river, connecting from head to tail, protecting the martial sage within, preventing him from being refined. Martial sage, do you think that this can protect you? Your martial Tao is indeed strong, but this can only allow you to struggle at death's door. Now, enter the body of the martial sage and become one with him. Gu Tiansha closed his palm and immediately shrunk the circle of the martial sage to the size of a palm. Then, this circle entered the body of the martial sage. Immediately, the sound of countless worlds collapsing rang out inside the body of the martial sage. Buzz! Gu Tiansha injected the power of the sun and moon into the body of the martial sage again. The martial sage seemed to have gone through a critical transformation. His body actually had the aura of a heavenly venerate. Of course, this wasn't his own aura. Instead, it was the aura that erupted after he and the martial sage fused. This power and aura seemed to be destroying Wan Senchi's restrictive magic. Suddenly, the space around them trembled, and endless darkness condensed into a figure that stood in front of Gu Tiansha. This figure wore a black robe and a mask. It was none other than Wan Senchi, who no one knew what he looked like. This old antique was a creature born from primal chaos, and he had an unfathomable amount of mysteries. However, he seemed to have run out of luck recently, and all of his pawns had slipped out of his control. Now, even the martial sage he had painstakingly cultivated was about to slip out of his control. He couldn't bear it. This was his clone. No one knew where his real body had gone, or what he was up to. Lord of the Sun and Moon. His clone saw Gu Tiansha as soon as he arrived. His voice froze for a moment. Then he slowly said, "That's right. I'm Lord of the Sun and Moon, Gu Tiansha." Gu Tiansha looked at Wan Senchi. "Wan Senchi, this martial sage has already pledged his allegiance to me. Don't make things difficult for him. How about you respect his choice? But it doesn't matter if you don't agree. Even if your real body comes, you won't be able to do anything to me. Martial sage will still be my subordinate. Your clone is a great supplement, so I'll take it too." Gu Tiansha. Wan Xinqi's tone became calm. How arrogant of you. If I'm not wrong, your true cultivation isn't that of a saint. You're roughly at the 31st or 32nd transformation of the Tao realm. You're relying on the power of the sun and moon great thousand, but you can't use much of it. You actually want to take my clone and pawn? With that, Wan Xinqi turned around and faced Martial Sage. Martial Sage, you actually dare to betray me? Do you know the consequences of doing so? What consequences? Martial Sage seemed to have regained the dignity of an emperor. I once unified the divine prefecture and grasped great power. My achievements surpassed those of the ancient emperors. I've always been a dictatorial person. Wan Xinqi, you dare to try to control me? Do you really think I'm a pawn and a puppet who listens to you? In the future, you'll have to look up to what I've done. Very good, very good. Back when you were killed by Gu Chansha of the Celestial Commerce Department, you even lost your divergent heart. I used the primordial emperor's seal, the emperor's life talisman, the king's life flag, the commander's life sword, and the human master's saber. 5 Khanate treasures. I even added my own origin power, the life essence refined from the primal chaos Big Bang. If not, you wouldn't have revived and cultivated to your current realm. Fortunately, I knew you would betray me, so I set up all sorts of restrictions in your body. But you didn't expect that the sun and moon lords would find me. With their power, they could suppress my seals and even dissolve them, allowing me to break free from your control. Martial Sage said, Wan Xinqi, you've fallen behind. Since you attacked the calming Celestial Bureau and captured Yuan Lu, offending Gu Qinsha, your luck started to weaken. This is why I broke free from your control. Is that so? Wan Xinqi said, It's not impossible for you to break free from my control as long as you leave behind what I gave you. The 5 primordial treasures and my source power. With the sun and moon lords acting for me, do you think that's possible? Martial Sage said disdainfully. Gu Qinsha, I know that your enemies are Gu Qinsha and the calming Celestial Bureau. Since you've named yourself Gu Qinsha, that means you're part of the imperial family. You're the sun and moon lords, but Gu Qinsha has cultivated the heavenly Tao, so he's superior to you in essence. Wan Xinqi said, This Martial Sage is ambitious. Even if you train and control him now, I'm afraid he'll still betray you in the future. It doesn't matter. As the sun and moon lord, the son of the heavenly Tao, I can tolerate all good and evil. Karma is in my control. Whether he betrays me or not, it's all in my control. I can train anyone, but I can also destroy anyone with a single thought. You can't control a Martial Sage, but I can. Gu Qinsha didn't care at all. He had absolute confidence. Wan Xinqi, you're at the peak of the Celestial Longevity realm, but you'll never be able to reach the Celestial Prime realm. You know this too because you have a bottleneck, but I don't. In the future, I can reach the Celestial Prime realm, Celestial realm, and even the Heavenly Tao. You will never understand how many secrets there are in my body. As for Gu Qinsha, he's a formidable opponent. I won't underestimate him. He's the same as me, an existence that's never appeared before. The Heavenly Tao art, the sun and moon lords, have never appeared in the long river of history. That's why it's interesting. The official mobile reader app has been released. New products updated daily. Huge amount of content. Small size, saves data flow. No ads. Easy to find. Come and follow the official WeChat account. Jaya Konglishi, press for 3 seconds to copy. Download mobile app. Chapter 714. Right now, Gu Tiansha wasn't worried about Emperor Wu betraying him. Furthermore, he wasn't worried about Emperor Wu betraying him. That was how strong he was. As far as he was concerned, even if Emperor Wu cultivated to become a celestial or even a celestial's lifespan, he would still be in control. That was absolute control. He knew what Emperor Wu was thinking, but he didn't care. Emperor Wu, you probably don't know what the Lord of the Sun Moon is thinking, so you're still hoping to get lucky. I've never forced you to do anything or tried to control you, but you betrayed me and joined the Lord of the Sun Moon. That was a grave mistake. Wan Xinqi snorted disdainfully at Emperor Wu's intelligence. The Lord of the Sun Moon wants to break free of the Tao of heaven and gather the power of all living beings. There's no way he has any good intentions in subjugating you. He must have seen the current commander-in-chief of the Celestial Calmness Bureau, the king of all living beings. That's why he fused you with a martial saint and made you a celestial. Then he refined you into his puppet, making you just like the king of all living beings. You'll become an emotionless, mindless slave, a pitiful existence who will do nothing but work as a laborer. Emperor Wu's face fell when he heard Wan Senchi's words. He was shocked. He was very clear that the Sun Moon Lord Gu Tiansha was nurturing him like this because he wanted to forge him into a character similar to the king of common life. Moreover, he was someone who had once been an emperor. He had occupied the central divine prefecture and established the Great Wu dynasty. His achievements had even surpassed those of the ancient emperors. If it wasn't for the sudden appearance of the heavenly talisman emperor, the martial emperor would have been the greatest emperor in history. His karma with the central divine prefecture had been tied to him for a very long time. Because of that, Emperor Wu was the best material for Gu Tiansha to refine into a puppet and manage all living beings. That was exactly what Gu Tiansha was thinking. He wanted to refine Emperor Wu into a sun-moon magistrate. With that, he could control the cosmos and govern the world. That way, he could surpass the king of all living beings. The materials needed to refine the king of all living beings were extraordinary. They contained countless primeval treasures and savings of the Dharma saint, as well as the fragment of the epic cruiser and the myriad demon patriarch North Star. However, in terms of fate and karma, when compared to governing a country and controlling the central planes, a puppet administrator refined from a martial emperor was indeed the most suitable. The Sun Moon Lord Gu Tiansha's level of cultivation and intelligence naturally knew that in order to occupy the central divine prefecture and steal Yanko's fate, he had to control the people and establish a regime. Someone had to be in charge. If the Lord of the Sun Moon Gu Tiansha still didn't make a move as time dragged on, the power of the imperial court and the Department of Calmness would only grow. Yanko now had a population of over 20 billion, and everything was in order. The citizens were growing at an explosive rate, and the imperial court was expanding their territory, incorporating new citizens. If this were to continue, the population would increase tenfold in a few decades. All of these people were gathered together by the calming immortal department. This sort of power of will was something that even the Sun-Moon sovereigns felt was terrifying. Even now, as the king of common life's management of the common people gradually stepped onto the right track, going deep into the grassroots, the people's hearts were united. The power of will that was produced every day was enough to push the dimensional realm of the common life's sphere to fiercely revolve, and it was also constantly expanding. In addition, the Department of Calmness had also launched an attack on the demons. Now, many experts among the common people had begun to enter the demon domain to capture and kill the devils. The originally fearful demonic chi could now be completely neutralized. In the eyes of the people, the devils and the demon race were boiling hot treasures. For example, the goat horn monsters, which are the most numerous among the demons. After dispelling the demon chi from their bodies, their entire bodies were treasures. Their horns were extremely hard, sharper than steel, and could be used to make weapons. Their flesh was extremely tender, surpassing even that of a bull. Their bones, tendons, and skin were all rare materials. Their souls could also be absorbed and decomposed into pure psychic energy. In the past, ordinary armies have been no match for the goat horn monsters. Even the weakest of them could easily leap dozens of feet. Their bodies were extremely tough, and they could traverse mountains with ease. At the very least, only the peak of the martial warrior rank could stand a chance against them. An army of goat horn monsters that blotted out the sky was a nightmare. But now, many of the common people were wearing metal armor that could fly and wielding machine guns, hand cannons, and thunderfire bullets. An ordinary person wearing such equipment could slaughter the powerful goat horn monster army of the demon race. Not to mention the experts wearing human dragon armor, human dragon swords, and spatial rings. These experts could kill tens of thousands of the demon army and obtain enormous wealth. If this continued, not only would the demons not be able to cause a disaster, but they would also become nourishment for the humans. In the end, the humans and the Yonko would become a monstrous existence. As the driving force of this, the Department of Calmness would definitely obtain supreme power. This was something that the Sun Moon Lord Gu Tiansha did not wish to see. Of course, he also wanted to obtain power in the imperial court and swallow this fruit. Thus, he had been actively planning to suddenly attack at the most crucial moment, catching the Department of Calmness unprepared. All right, Wan Senshi, there's no point in saying all this now. Originally, I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to nurture a martial monarch, but since you've come with your clone, that's great. This clone of yours should contain about a tenth of your original power. I'll let the martial monarch devour you, and that should be enough. After devouring your clone, the martial monarch and martial saint will merge, and then I'll refine the 5 great mountains of the Wuzhou province. At the same time, I'll devour the martial saint's paradise. After refining for a while, I'll definitely be able to rival the king of common life. I might even surpass him. Gu Tiansha opened his palm again, and the light of the sun and moon surged, instantly sealing the hall. From the outside, there seemed to be nothing strange about the hall, but only those who walked and could see the surging power of the Sun Moon Great Thousand Worlds inside. Sun Moon Lord, although you're an existence that has never appeared before, you're still too inexperienced. You're someone who was born to face tribulations. You've gained power for a while, but you're actually still in the midst of a tribulation. You're pitiful, but you don't know it. Of course, I can't do anything to you now that you possess the great luck of the world, but you're dreaming if you want to refine my clone. Wan Senshi wasn't afraid of Gu Tiansha. In reality, there weren't many people in this world that could make him feel fear. He didn't even take Xing Qiongshi seriously, unless she truly mastered the 100th layer of the Divine Continent's secret technique. Whether or not the fire is shallow is not something you can understand. Immortal Master Wan, your destiny is still there, but it is declining. After today, when this incarnation of yours perishes, your destiny will fall even further. I will slowly harvest you. Meng Hao's eyes flickered. Gu Tiansha's tone was lofty. Even an antique like Wan Senshi, who was born from the primal chaos explosion, was nothing more than nourishment in his eyes. The brightness of the sun and moon returned to the origin, returned to simplicity. The hall was filled with the power of Gu Tiansha's Sun Moon Great Thousand Worlds. The sun was a great thousand world, and the moon was a great thousand world. Furthermore, these 2 great thousand worlds were able to cover every corner of the endless world with their light. It was clear that they were the pinnacle of great thousand worlds, mystic yellow great thousand worlds, Saha great thousand worlds, Jambu great thousand worlds, central great thousand worlds, and so on. Using the power of the Sun Moon Great Thousand Worlds, Gu Tiansha had complete control of the situation. Even Wan Senshi paled in comparison. This was Gu Tiansha's supreme cultivation base. He was invincible under the heavens, the supreme realm. Great thousand worlds. At this time, an even greater power suddenly emerged from Wan Senshi's clone. This power surged and surged endlessly. It was the purest essence of the primordial chaos, and it had condensed into an ancient dimensional realm. As this dimensional realm emerged, one could see endless ancient beasts within. All sorts of strange races that had long since disappeared in the long river of history were thriving and thriving here. This dimensional realm was incomparably large. Compared to the common people's wish sphere, the Dharma world, and even the heavenly demon prison, it was far larger. The races that lived within were far from what these dimensional realms could compare with. There were even some races that had been researched and created by Wan Senshi himself. He was the god of creation, and also the god of creation. This dimensional realm had been created and managed by him since the time of the primordial chaos explosion. It had been countless years since then, and the power accumulated within was likely close to touching upon the threshold of the heavenly origin realm. Unlike the Sun-Moon Lord Gu Tiansha, he could use 100% of this dimensional realm's power. Wan Xinshi, you really did come prepared. Gu Tiansha's expression turned solemn. Wan Xinshi's real body hadn't moved, but this clone had communicated with the dimensional realm that he had refined himself. With the help of the dimensional realm's power, he could almost reach an invincible realm. The power of the Sun-Moon Great Kiliacosm pressed against each other like a millstone, trying to grind away Wan Xinshi's clone. But Wan Xinshi's clone was wrapped in the depths of the dimensional realm's power. It kept spinning, exploding, and flying like a reef in a raging sea. It couldn't be refined. This is the power of the Sun-Moon Great Kiliacosm? Not bad, not bad. Immortal Teacher one criticized Gu Tiansha. Master of the Sun and Moon, it's a pity that your realm is too low. If you could step into the sage realm, you would be able to become a sage. If you could use more of the Sun-Moon Great Kiliacosm's power, my clone would definitely be erased by you. But now, I can absorb the power of the Sun-Moon Great Kiliacosm to create my own dimensional realm, pushing my power to a terrifying realm. The Sun-Moon Great Kiliacosm is like a mountain of gold. You can only dig out a little bit of gold, but it's enough for you to flaunt your wealth. But this can make me stronger. I'll take this gold from you. Wan Xinshi also displayed his might and power as an ancient creature born during the time of the primordial chaos explosion. He definitely wouldn't let Gu Tiansha defeat him easily. He also wanted to obtain huge benefits from Gu Tiansha. Important notice. Are you still using the webpage to follow me? Are you still troubled by the advertising problem? Please use this site's free app. No advertising, no errors, fast updates, members' synchronized bookshelves, text size adjustment, reading brightness adjustment, better reading experience. Please follow the official WeChat account. Appxid. Hold down for 3 seconds to copy. Download the free reader. Chapter 715. Mail. How dare you? Gu Tiansha seemed to be enraged. The strength of the Sun and Moon Great Thousand. Is that something that you can absorb or blaspheme? Wan Xinshi was indeed absorbing the strength of the Sun and Moon Great Thousand. Originally, the source strength of the Sun and Moon Great Thousand was impossible to shake because it contained the will of the Sun and Moon. But the power of the Great Thousand had passed through Gu Tiansha's circulation, causing that brilliant and inviolable will to shrink by a great deal. This allowed Wan Xinshi to slowly refine and absorb it. I have to thank you for swallowing the Sun and Moon, Gu Tiansha. Wan Xinshi remained unmoved. You are still too naive. Although you came into being out of nowhere, you aren't calm enough. If you had come into being a little later, then you would have been invincible. But now you are far from that. Of course, you saw the calming immortal department growing stronger and stronger at a rapid pace. So you had no choice but to come out and stir up a storm. Otherwise, if you allowed the calming immortal department to continue growing like this, then your own cultivation speed would be far from being able to keep up with the calming immortal department's growth. You had to come out because this also proves that you aren't invincible. You are still entangled in karma, and you cannot endure this. Your temperament is far worse than the 3 Empyreans. Look, the 3 Empyreans already know of the strength of the calming immortal department, and yet they are still enduring it. They are much calmer than you. Wan Xinshi, you speak too much nonsense. Gu Tiansha coldly sneered. No matter what you say today, you will leave this incarnation behind. As he spoke, countless suns and moons condensed, twisting together and changing. They turned into massive bolts of divine thunder that caused Wan Xinshi to shake again and again. It seemed as if the strength of the dimensional realm couldn't protect this incarnation, much less absorb the source strength of the Sun and Moon. Gu Tiansha, the reason you attacked the calming immortal department was because you were afraid that the calming immortal department would subdue those people from the new divine continent, such as Taoist upheaval, Wang Shanshi, as well as a host of masters from various great worlds. If these people were subdued by the calming immortal department, that would be the same as increasing the overall strength of the Black Heaven and Earth Gate. Thus, you acted and rescued these people. But you also wanted to refine these people, so you imprisoned them in a secret place where no one would be able to predict where they would be. Once you refined the martial emperors and martial saints, you returned and refined those people into puppet magistrates. At the same time, you stripped away their destiny and added it to your body. Like this, you would be able to enjoy the great destiny of the world and also have a magistrate that wouldn't lose to the common people's grand marshal or the common people's king. This plan was simply flawless. Unfortunately, your existence made me and the Immortal Master feel threatened. Thus, I teamed up with the Immortal Master once again and finally found the place where you sealed those masters. We rescued all of them and divided them between the Immortal Master and myself. That caused your plan to fail, and you did a lot of useless work. Did you really think that I was just an incarnation? The Immortal Master and I have already begun to attack the place where you sealed them. Soon, we will be able to break it. Also, there are many primordial treasures in that old nest of yours. We'll gladly accept them. Juan Senchi's tone became old and wise, like a senior mocking a junior who is still wet behind the ears. You're simply seeking death. When Gu Tiansha heard this, he was enraged. His eyes shone with boundless light. Indeed, in the depths of space-time, in the most intense and chaotic space-time turbulence, he saw a huge country that he had created. Outside, figures flickered. The true bodies of Juan Senchi and the Immortal Master were outside this country, fiercely attacking it. Other than Juan Senchi and the Immortal Master, there were many other figures. Among them, there was no lack of heavenly venerables, and there were even some strange existences. His own country and lair were in danger. Lord of the Sun Moon, Gu Tiansha, think about it carefully. Among the people you imprisoned, there are many big shots of the Great Thousand Realms. For example, that Wang Chengshi is the child of the mystique Great Thousand Realms. He was born because of the tribulations of the Great Thousand Realms. His body contains the source energy of the mystique Great Thousand Realms, and he is the child of the Great Thousand Realms. You imprisoned him. Doesn't that mean that the mystique Great Thousand Realms will be cut off? Countless experts of the Great Thousand Realms will naturally come to rescue him. Juan Senchi said, "Your identity as the Lord of the Sun Moon is actually a tonic to us. If the Immortal Master and I divide you, we might be able to directly cultivate to the heavenly origin realm. You are already the enemy of the entire world." Enemy of the entire world? Gu Tiansha shot to his feet. "Very well, Juan Senchi. I can't believe you actually pulled out the firewood from under me. I underestimated you and the Immortal Master. But do you really think you've won? I'm truly invincible. Even if the entire world is my enemy, you have to acknowledge allegiance to me. Anyone who doesn't obey me will die. No exception. How arrogant. In the end, if you call yourself Gu Tiansha, then the Immortal Master is still your senior." Juan Senchi laughed, his laughter laced with greed. He wanted to devour the Lord of the Sun Moon and ascend to the heavenly origin realm. Almost all of the heavyweights in the world were searching for the Lord of the Sun Moon. They had all reached a bottleneck, and if they could devour him, they would definitely be able to break through. In the eyes of the heavyweights, the Lord of the Sun Moon wasn't a terrifying existence, but rather a miraculous spirit pill that could help them break through. The moment the heavyweights saw the Lord of the Sun Moon, they would pay any price to devour him. When Juan Senchi saw the Lord of the Sun Moon, there was no fear, only excitement. All of you died. At that moment, Gu Tiansha's body changed, turning into a blurry sky. In the depths of the sky, the sun, moon, and stars all appeared. It was unknown how many stars there were, how many worlds there were, and how many mysteries there were. I'll show you that I'm not just the Lord of the Sun Moon. The Lord of the Sun Moon is just one of my minor identities. Now, I'll show you the power of my true identity. This is... Juan Senchi's expression changed greatly. He seemed to see a miniature version of the endless continent like the heavenly realm. Endless power. heavenly realm power. Under Gu Tiansha's transformation, Wan Xinqi's clone crumbled inch by inch, as if it couldn't resist at all. No matter how hard it struggled, it was useless. At that moment, Gu Tiansha's power connected the past and the present, creating a passageway that connected to his base in the boundless spatial turbulence of China to provide support. He suppressed martial emperors and martial sages, destroyed Wan Xinqi's clone, and protected his base from being breached at the same time. It could be said that he had truly displayed his invincible might. However, at that moment, as Wan Xinqi's clone was about to crumble, a power that was close to the heavenly Tao suddenly appeared within the martial emperor's body. It was as if some sort of wondrous seed was awakening. Following this, the martial sage within his body broke free from its restraints and took control, suppressing the martial emperor's will. In the end, the martial sage's body suddenly changed and collapsed. In the blink of an eye, some sort of hidden power approached and disappeared, taking away even the martial emperor. Gu Tiansha. At that moment, the Lord of the Sun Moon, Gu Tiansha, roared furiously. He had never expected this to happen. When did you infiltrate the martial emperor's body? He could only watch as the martial sage's will was suppressed by the martial sage before being activated by some sort of mysterious power hidden by Gu Tiansha. Actually, when the martial emperor devoured Wudong Xian and seized control of the martial sage's paradise, he had already buried a hidden danger. Wudong Xian already controlled 1/3 of the martial sage's paradise, and he was a chess piece that Gu Tiansha had hidden. In Gu Tiansha's eyes, the martial emperor had long been a big leak, but he had never had the time to harvest it. Now that the Lord of the Sun Moon, Gu Tiansha, had appeared out of nowhere and fought against Wan Xinqi for the martial emperor, it gave Gu Tiansha a chance. Gu Tiansha finally made a move. While saving the martial sage, he also captured the martial emperor. At that moment, because Gu Tiansha wanted to save his base, he could only watch as the martial sage and the martial emperor escaped from his control. At that moment, Gu Tiansha's calculations had reached the pinnacle, reaching the limit. Only at this moment could he save the martial sage from the Lord of the Sun Moon, seize the martial emperor, and harvest the martial emperor again. Whoosh! The huge power directly pulled the martial sage and the martial emperor into the medium-sized world of the common people's wishball. This medium-sized world became stronger day by day. After the 5 elements were completed, the life force within the world was full. The green dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise obtained the essence energy of the North Star country. The 5 elements worked together, and all of them gained 1,000 years of cultivation. The moment the martial emperor entered, he saw the giant world tree that connected many worlds. At the top of the world tree, there was a 100-mile-long green dragon, a mountain-like black tortoise, a vermilion bird that could turn the sky red, and a white tiger that looked like it had evolved into a mountain of gold and silver. These 4 saint beasts had all matured and evolved many times. Now, their cultivation was the same as that of a God Realm expert above Tao Realm Transformation 30. Each of them had formed their own small world in their bodies. Moreover, their improvement was not just that. As they were fed by Gu Tiansha's Heaven Path technique, all of them broke through their original limits and had hope of becoming stronger than their seniors. These 4 saint beasts rested on the world tree, and each of them built their own lairs to cultivate. They then split out clones to roam the world and help the disciples of the calming celestial department kill demons. In return, the calming celestial department disciples spread the majesty of the 4 saint beasts. After this spread to the people, many scholars wrote about the 4 saint beasts to raise their reputations and obtain huge amounts of luck. Seal. Gu Tiansha appeared in front of the martial emperor. His eyes could pierce through everything, and he could see through many illusory things. He could also see that the martial sage was in the martial emperor's body. He didn't stop and use the common people heaven mending technique and common people heaven reforming technique to form the common people seal to seal the martial emperor. The martial emperor's eyes opened wide in rage, and he struggled. Unfortunately, it was useless. After entering the medium-sized world, he was filled with despair. This was because he wasn't an Empyrean yet. Even if he was, he wouldn't be able to do much in front of the power of a medium-sized world. Apart from that, there was also a North Star that was equivalent to an Empyrean in this medium-sized world. Important notice, this website's free app, no ads, no errors, fast updates, members synchronized bookshelves, text size adjustment, reading brightness adjustment, better reading experience. Please pay attention to the official WeChat account. Appsid. Hold down for 3 seconds to copy. Download the free reader. Chapter 716. The current calming Xian department was filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Zhuge Lu Baiwei, Gu Chansha, Gu Huasha, longevity god, Lu Yu, the reincarnated god of 5 seasons, and Jin Suibua, Ling Xiaofei, Yuan Lu, and the others. Not to mention Gu Chansha. Even if he hadn't become a god, he was still one of the most terrifying people in the world. His true strength might not even be comparable to a heavenly venerable, and he could only fight experts of the 35 or 36 transformation of the Tao realm. If it was a one-on-one battle, without using the power of a medium-sized world or treasures, Gu Qinsha and Lu Baiwei would be evenly matched. However, one had to know that Lu Baiwei had already reached the 30 transformation of the world creation realm and had become a god. As for Gu Chansha, he was only at the 29 transformation and had comprehended the primal chaos realm. If Gu Chansha also stepped into the god realm, it would be a world-shaking change, and even a heavenly venerable wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Only then would he be able to truly roam the world. The power of Cui Dong's medium-sized world would be ordinary, and it could even stimulate the world tree to reach a deeper transformation, becoming an even stronger existence and gradually approaching the Hongmeng tree. It was a pity that Gu Chansha still couldn't step into the god realm, as he was still lacking some crucial things. As for longevity god, he would soon reach the 36 transformation of the embodiment transformation realm. This was because he had obtained the true god position of the longevity god, fortune god, and longevity god, and he had truly become a Zhang Sanquan. His small chiliocosm was working together, and he had accumulated enough. He had also received a lot of nurturing from the Dharma saint. This way, he would become an unparalleled giant sooner or later. Longevity god was sincerely lowering his head to Gu Chansha and doing his best for the calming Xian department. This was because his destiny was already completely linked to the calming Xian department. With so many experts cooperating with each other and working as one, if the calming immortal department didn't prosper and prosper, there would be no justice in the world. Martial Emperor, we meet again. The last time you attempted to obtain Black Dragon Great Sage's Crystal Palace, I captured you, refined you, and seized the heart of a divergent. This caused my common people's wish sphere to evolve once more, finally transforming into a dimensional realm. The development of our calming immortal division is all thanks to you. Originally, I thought that after you were reborn, you would repent and repent, but instead, you became even more vicious and tried to subvert the world. You couldn't let go of your former dignity as an emperor, and you didn't sever your karmic ties. Why exactly? The martial emperor calmed down and seemed to be thinking of a way to escape. Because you brought this upon yourself. Now that all living beings in the world have awakened, you still want to use the methods of an emperor to enslave them. In the unseen world, you will be devoured by the power of all living beings, resulting in a tribulation. This is the tide that goes against the general trend of the world. Your destiny will rapidly decline. The reason why our calming Xian department's destiny is flourishing is because we have almost touched the supreme principle of all living beings being united. Gu Qinsha pointed. Suddenly, a ray of light rushed out of the martial emperor's body. Within this light was a person. It was the martial saint, the resurrected martial saint. As expected of the Lord of Sun and Moon, Gu Qinsha, just by relying on his own sacrifice, he was able to resurrect the martial saint. Gu Chansha admired the martial saint. Martial saint, you are different from the Dharma saint. You have maintained your original heart, and you are the representative of martial arts. Now that you have been reborn, what do you think? You are Gu Chansha, the cultivator of the heaven path technique. You are the same as the Lord of Sun and Moon, one good and one evil. You protect the human race, create order, raise people's intelligence, fight against the demon race, expand land, and create civilization. From your body, I can see a huge amount of merit. The martial saint praised Gu Chansha. He roughly understood the changes in heaven and earth, the central divine continent, the people, and the imperial court's atmosphere. Such a way of ruling a country was also his dream. Sir Martial Saint is really magnanimous. Unfortunately, your most promising descendant, the Martial Emperor, is different and didn't follow your will. How should I deal with him now? His cultivation isn't weak now. He is at the Tao Realm 36 transformation. His embodiment transformation realm is at the peak of the Tao Realm 36 transformation. If I don't rely on the power of the medium-sized world, I won't be able to suppress him with my own strength. If I release him, the world will still be in chaos. Gu Chansha didn't dare to underestimate the Martial Emperor. The Martial Emperor had revived time and time again, getting stronger and stronger. Although Gu Chansha had killed him, as the world changed, sooner or later he would break free from Gu Chansha's control. Since the Lord of Sun and Moon Gu Tiansha appeared, Gu Chansha felt like he had met his strongest opponent. This time, he was able to capture the Martial Emperor and save the Martial Saint because Gu Tiansha was fighting with the myriad immortal master and the others. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to gain any advantage from Gu Tiansha. But this was also an eye for an eye. Gu Tiansha saved Wang Chengshi and the others from his hands. So he saved the Martial Saint from Gu Tiansha's hands and snatched the Martial Emperor. Both sides fought, and it was a draw. Of course, Gu Chansha knew that if the Celestial Calmness Division didn't have Regal Propria's golden medallion as a backing, then the Moon's sovereign Gu Chansha would have a great deal of scruples. Otherwise, the dimensional realm wouldn't have been able to resist the enemy. This was also because Gu Tiansha hadn't reached Saint Realm. If he did, the Calm Celestial Department would have to face huge pressure. Of course, as long as Gu Chansha reached God Realm, then all the problems would be solved. Now that he had regained his face, it was time to kill the Martial Emperor. However, the revival of the Martial Saint was a righteous matter, so he had to ask for his opinion. Gu Chansha respected the Martial Saint a lot. Actually, even if it was the Dharma Saint, as long as he didn't do anything wrong, Gu Chansha respected him. After all, he had established laws and order for humans in ancient times, subdued demons, and suppressed the ages. He had done great deeds for humans. Unfortunately, for some reason, he had changed. Maybe it was the heavenly Tao's tribulation. Humans sank into it and became chess pieces, unable to control their own fate. In reality, Wan Senshi, Xing Qiongshi, and the Celestial Lord were all the same. Even the Lord of Sun and Moon Gu Tiansha was in the depths of a tribulation, drifting with the waves. He wanted to struggle, but couldn't escape. Although the Martial Emperor wanted to unify the world, he didn't do anything evil. The Martial Saint looked at Gu Chansha and suddenly sighed. His ambition is clear, but it doesn't match his strength. His stubbornness hasn't been broken. I feel that the best way is to remove all of his cultivation and refine him into a puppet similar to the common people's great commander. Only by doing his part for the world's order can he make up for his mistakes. No, Martial Emperor howled like a wounded wild beast. You can't do this. I've had countless fortuitous encounters to regain the power I had back then, and now you want to cripple me. I'm not resigned to this. I'm a Martial Emperor, and I've founded the Great Wu Empire, and my name has shaken the Divine Prefecture. Of course you're not wrong. It's just that your ambition is too great. Gu Chansha clenched his fist, and immediately countless whirlpools spun in the air. A black and white hole that alternated between light and dark appeared above his head. A strong suction came from the depths of the hole, and it actually started to absorb the martial emperor's energy. The martial monarch struggled, but there was nothing he could do in the face of this power. What a powerful cultivation technique! It contains the son of heaven's god sealing art and another, even stronger martial art. Is this the heavenly talisman emperor's great god slaughtering art? One god sealing art, the other god slaughtering art. Combined with your heavenly Tao cultivation, yin and yang, good and evil, everything is in this thought. Extracting the martial emperor's cultivation is not a problem. The martial saint seemed to be pondering something. He seemed to have his own insights. The martial emperor's cultivation has reached the 36 transformations. He's in the realm of embodiment transformation. In addition, he's an anomaly. If we were to fight head-on, I wouldn't be able to do anything to him with my own strength. I might even be defeated by him. Gu Qinsha said, but in this dimensional realm, there are many experts in the celestial tranquility department. We control the world. Even if it's the power of will condense from the masses, it's not something a martial emperor can resist. Extracting his cultivation is naturally a piece of cake. As he spoke, Gu Qinsha suddenly made another grabbing motion. Rumble. Immediately, endless origin chi condensed in the martial emperor's body again, forming a connate spiritual treasure. It was a jade seal. This jade seal contained the aura of the first emperor when the world was created. This was the beginning emperor seal that Wan Senshi had taken out to restore the martial emperor's strength. The power of this jade seal was only below that of the liberation bow and the constant and impermanence arrows. It was also one of the best connate spiritual treasures. Even a number one ancient immortal sect, like the Black Heaven and Earth sect, could not find one or two of them. With the beginning emperor seal forcibly extracted, the martial emperor immediately weakened. His cultivation fell from the 36 transformations to the 35 transformations. With this, his aura weakened, and Gu Qinsha's power took advantage of it. Immediately, 2 hours later, the emperor's life talisman, the king's life flag, the general's life sword, and the human main saber were all extracted. The martial emperor's cultivation fell to the early divine realm. Gu Qinsha slapped his palm again, using the banishing immortals technique. Immediately, all the essence of the martial emperor's cultivation was refined and condensed in his palm. Then, with a slight movement, a masked head appeared. This was Wan Senshi's head. However, the head was reinforced by the power of the sun and moon, preventing it from playing tricks. This was Gu Qinsha's power. Originally, Wan Senshi had spent a great deal of effort to nurture the martial emperor. The martial emperor should not have been able to escape from his grasp, but who knew that the master of the sun and moon, Gu Qinsha, would appear. With Gu Qinsha's unimaginable means, he had restrained Wan Senshi, but now, both of their powers had benefited Gu Qinsha. Good stuff. Gu Qinsha played with the 5 connate spiritual treasures and Wan Senshi's head. These treasures are enough for me to create another powerful puppet. The app supports offline reading, no ads, and millions of books are free to read. Font and brightness adjustment, night mode, reading progress memory, and many other powerful features. Please follow the official WeChat account to download. Geja Jinksin. Press and hold for 3 seconds to copy. Chapter 717. 5 connate spirit treasures. Immortal Master Wan's essence. Lord of the Sun and Moon Gu Qinsha's universe of the sun and moon, and all the cultivation of a martial emperor were fused together. Although it couldn't be said to be a celestial lord level king of common people, it shouldn't be too difficult to create a puppet equivalent to the Tao realm 36 transformations. After all, Martial Emperor himself was at the peak of 36 transformations. He might have even stepped into Celestial Lord realm. Gu Qinsha stole all his cultivation and gathered it into one body. Along with his own methods, he would definitely be able to create a strong puppet. My strength, my realm, my cultivation, all of it is gone. Even my divergent heart is gone. They're all gone. I'm now a completely ordinary person. The martial emperor looked at his hands in despair. He had encountered another calamity. This time, he had no confidence to recover. All of his confidence had collapsed. Martial emperor, don't be discouraged. This strength isn't yours, but once Senshi gave it to you. You have to accumulate it bit by bit. If you want to change your beliefs, I can still nurture you and make you a pillar of our Wu family. Our Wu family needs to change our beliefs and work with the imperial court. I will lead the team and let the Wu family participate in the management of the imperial court and not go against it. Martial Saint said, although Jingxianxi stole your strength to you, it is the same as abandoning some karma and glory, allowing you to be a new person. Not bad. Martial Saint revives and can revitalize the Wu family, allowing the Wu family to shine once more. Martial path will be deeply ingrained in the hearts of the people, like the Buddhist sect's New Zen culture, merging it into our Yonko civilization. In the end, it will allow the Wu family to shine once more, allowing the ancient Wu family to shine once more. This is a chance for the Wu family to develop. Abandon all the aristocratic families in the past. Gu Qinshan knew that the aristocratic families were a cancer, but wiping them out was the same as destroying one's own wall. After all, the aristocratic families were the source of the world's civilization. Much of the essence of human history was in them. There weren't thousand-year dynasties, but there were thousands of years of aristocratic families. If all the aristocratic families in the world were to be exterminated, it would be a huge loss to human civilization and culture. It would be best if all the aristocratic families in the world were to submit and reform, just like the Buddhist sect reform. In the past, the Buddhist sect emphasized on being a monk. Now, they emphasized on cultivating at home. There was no difference between being a monk and cultivating at home. In this way, not only did the Buddhist sect not die out, but it also flourished. Regardless of whether it was the Wu clan or the Dharma saint, they could all do the same. However, the martial saint was willing to do so, but the Dharma saint was unwilling. The martial sage waved his sleeve and sucked the martial emperor into his sleeve. This was clearly to protect him. No matter what, the martial emperor was still the Wu clan's most outstanding disciple. As long as the martial saint could be nurtured again, the martial emperor would still be of great help to the clan's revitalization. It's all thanks to you this time. If it weren't for the help of your heavenly Tao, I'm afraid I would have fallen into the Sun Moon Lord's trap and fallen into oblivion forever. The martial sage cupped his hands and said, I've been reborn after a calamity. Now that I've come back to life, I still need to investigate and understand the situation in the world. Only then will I be able to understand the bigger picture. Right now, everything under the heavens is under the control of the Celestial Tranquility Department. I wonder if you would be willing to be the host for once. You want me to observe the people's livelihood and the politics of the imperial court? That's not a problem at all. Gu Qinsha was also sizing up the martial sage. He discovered that the martial sage's cultivation was still at the peak of the 36 transformations. He was at the embodiment transformation realm and was similar to a martial emperor. However, if he were to fight with a martial emperor, Gu Qinsha felt that he would definitely win. This was because the martial sage had an innate spirit, great ideals, great thinking, and great insight. It wasn't something that a martial emperor could compare to. However, the martial sage hadn't cultivated to become a heavenly venerate. Originally, if the Sun Moon Lord, Gu Qinsha, continued to activate the power of the Sun and Moon Great Thousand, the martial sage might be able to follow the Dharma saint and advance to become a heavenly venerate. However, Senshi had interrupted him. Of course, as long as the martial sage advanced to the heavenly venerate realm, it would mean that he would be completely controlled by Gu Qinsha. Right now, the martial sage had broken free from the restraints. The martial sage was an ancient saint. Now that he had been resurrected, his might would naturally be boundless. Moreover, he was the Wu clan's old ancestor. If he could be used well and have a good relationship with the imperial court, not only would it be a great role model for the world aristocratic families, but it could also increase the strength of the tranquil, immortal department. However, if the Wu clan wants to integrate the true essence and thoughts into the imperial court's culture, there is one person who is a huge obstacle. He is also a disciple of your Wu clan. Gu Chensha said. Wu Dankong. The martial sage knew who Gu Chensha was talking about. Wu Dankong was the person who had obtained the heaven sacrificial decree. Now, her cultivation had gradually reached a profound level. She had cooperated with the Dharma saint and obtained many resources. Although she had completely lost her power in the imperial court, the strength that she had accumulated in secret was no small matter. Originally, the martial emperor had obtained the control of the martial sage's paradise with the help of Wan Senshi. However, now that the martial emperor had been crippled and had become an ordinary person, Wan Senshi wouldn't help him. The control of the Wu clan might fall into the hands of Wu Dankong. The martial sage might have been resurrected, but Gu Qinshan knew that with the martial sage's cultivation, it would be hard for him to deal with the Dharma saint and Wu Dankong's cooperation. Thinking about it, the North Star demon Primogenitor possessed the five-element small chiliocosm and had deep accumulations. It was unknown how many times stronger the martial sage was, but it was still suppressed by the Dharma saint and Wu Dankong. If it wasn't for Gu Chinch's sudden appearance, the North Star demon would have become the Dharma saint's possession. The martial sage was far inferior to the North Star demon now. Wu Dankong might be able to defeat him if he made a move. The heaven sacrificial decree's power was gradually developed by Wu Dankong. This was a treasure that was equivalent to the great chiliocosm. It wasn't as simple as it was in the hands of Gu Qinsha. Back then, the heaven sacrificial decree couldn't unleash the power to confer titles to gods and suppress the heavens in Gu Qinsha's hands. That was because Gu Qinsha's cultivation was too low. He didn't even cultivate magic power and only had the 10 transformations Tao realm. Later on, his cultivation gradually increased, but the heaven sacrificial decree had already flown away. Right now, Wu Dankong had already cultivated to the God realm. Using the God realm to control the heaven sacrificial decree might not be able to unleash its full power, but it was still many times stronger than Gu Qinsha back then. The God realm's world power was an extremely high-level power. Between life and death, it could unleash the power of any primordial treasures to the fullest. That's right, it's Wu Dankong. Gu Qinsha said, "This woman's ambition is huge, and she isn't any weaker than the Sun Moon Lord. Right now, she is constantly expanding and accumulating her strength. She is planning to make a comeback one day. To her, the Wu clan must be subdued. There are so many disciples in the Wu clan. If all of them provide faith to her, her ability to activate the heaven sacrificial decree will be quite impressive." Within the Wu clan's minor chiliocosm, the martial Saint Grotto Heaven, there were millions or even tens of millions of Wu clan disciples. It was equivalent to a small country. Tens of millions of Wu clan disciples were all of the Wu clan's bloodline. Such pure faith was indeed a considerable number for the heaven sacrificial decree. Wu Dankong had long wanted to control the Wu clan. There was a period of time when his wish was fulfilled. However, the situation changed, and he completely lost control. Wu Dankong is indeed a unique existence in our Wu clan. She actually obtained the heaven sacrificial decree. I can't understand it, no matter how I think about it. With her temperament, cultivation, and comprehension of cultivation, they are actually very shallow. She has great ambition, but little talent. However, she just happened to obtain the heaven sacrificial decree. It's a little strange. It seems like the heaven sacrificial decree chose her out of desperation. Even a martial saint couldn't see through the changes of the heavenly Tao. If that's the case, I'll capture this woman one day and take back the heaven sacrificial decree. Then, everything will be revealed. This decree is a scourge. In the ancient era, it indeed made the Son of Heaven. However, when the decree left, it absorbed all of the Son of Heaven's cultivation and cultivation. This is equivalent to feeding the Son of Heaven and Earth before killing him. The sons of heaven in the past were all existences that gathered the great fortune of the heavens and earth. All of them were absorbed by the heaven sacrificial decree at their most glorious moment. Through the generations, I don't know how much fate energy has been accumulated. Gu Chansha said, in the depths of the heaven's sacrificial decree, there must be the life essence left by the ancient Son of Heaven. If all of it is excavated and injected into someone's body, that person will probably reach a terrifying level. That's what the Dharma saint is planning. The martial saint closed his eyes and pondered for a while. The heavenly Tao is currently changing crazily, creating a brand new order. Maybe one day, there will be a loophole in the heaven sacrificial decree. At that time, the Dharma saint will take advantage of the loophole and take away everything. With Wu Donkong's wisdom, she is far inferior to the Dharma saint. Maybe she thinks that she can contend with the Dharma saint. Unfortunately, she is a member of my Wu clan. My understanding of her far exceeds her understanding of herself. The Dharma saint and I have fought side by side for many years. We dealt with the demon race, and even the gods to protect the human race. I know the wisdom of the Dharma saint very well. His wisdom is above mine. That's why he is number one among the saints. The martial saint didn't think highly of Wu Dankong at all. This is all because Wu Dankong is courting death. However, if Lord Martial Saint is able to reform her, then we still have to put in a final effort. If she is able to repent, it will be a good thing. If not, then we have to suppress her to prevent her from being absorbed by the Dharma saint. As Gu Qinsha spoke, he started the process of refining a new puppet. Swoosh! At that moment, Lu Baiwei appeared. She arrived under the world tree. With a wave of her palm, the microscopic world instantly condensed into a form and was directly inserted into the world tree as a supplement. After a microscopic world was devoured by the world tree, the world tree immediately circulated violently. From within, a human figure was born. This human figure seemed to be the combination of Lu Baiwei and Gu Qinsha. Not only did it have a handsome face, but it also had the temperament of mending the heavens and reforming the heavens. There were circles of light behind this human figure's head. They were colorful halos of light. This was somewhat similar to the God of Wishes. This human figure was born from the world. It seemed to be a fruit. It hung on a branch and then dropped down, arriving in front of Lu Baiwei and Gu Qinsha. Then, Lu Baiwei kept producing microscopic world. This microscopic world was absorbed by the world tree. Then, it turned into rainbows and was injected into the human figure's body. Important notice, this is a free app of this site. No ads, no errors, fast updates. Members synchronize their bookshelves. Text size adjustment. Reading brightness adjustment. Better reading experience. Please follow the official WeChat account. Exit. Hold down for 3 seconds to copy. Download the free reader. Chapter 718. A long time ago, when the world tree was still the heavenly demon tree, it could already absorb many powerful demons, thus giving birth to all kinds of magic treasures, pills, and even puppets. Later, under the evolution of Gu Chansha and Juvia, the heavenly demon tree transformed into the tree of hope. It could absorb more energy and give birth to more colorful treasures. Later, the tree of hope became the world tree and became the pillar of many worlds. The power of the world tree had already reached an inconceivable degree. It was able to support the operation of a dimensional realm. For instance, with the support of the world tree, the dimensional realm of the common people's wish sphere was incomparably firm. The condensed space-time within it could even compare with some of the older dimensional realms. After Lu Baiwei cultivated to the god rank, she comprehended the earth-shattering might of the great massacre god technique and was able to continuously derive tiny worlds. When she used it to fight against enemies, even Wang Changshi, who had a 35 transformations tiny dust transformation, was helpless. But now, she was using the great massacre god technique to stimulate the world tree, constantly deriving tiny worlds for the world tree to devour. This was the same as feeding the god rank experts to the world tree. For the world tree, this was an unparalleled nourishment, and it could also give birth to all kinds of wonderful and powerful treasures. Heavenly Tao integration. At this time, Gu Chansha also stimulated the heavenly Tao art to cooperate. He constantly injected the heavenly Tao art into the world tree, causing the world tree to transform. Under the continuous condensation of the heavenly Tao art and the great massacre god technique, the world tree shrank again and again. Even the minor worlds hanging on the tree shrank. It wasn't the interior of the minor worlds that shrank, but the exterior. In the future, Gu Chansha could even directly grab the world tree in his hand, and then hang all kinds of minor and medium-sized worlds on the world tree. At that time, it would be equivalent to having a supreme magic treasure that could be taken away at any time. For his magic power, it was still very difficult to compress a medium-sized world. A dimensional realm towered into the heavens. Once it was created, it would be extremely large. It simply couldn't be compressed and carried around. It was just like a giant battleship that had to be anchored at sea. It had to be anchored in a massive harbor. It couldn't be casually placed there. If one could cultivate to the point of carrying a dimensional realm with them, then perhaps even one Senshi would not be able to do it. Even if Gu Chansha cultivated to the divinity level, he still wouldn't have such a possibility. Only if he cultivated to the Empyrean realm would he be able to control this dimensional realm as he pleased. But with his heavenly Tao technique cultivation base, wanting to become an Empyrean was simply incomparably difficult. Becoming a god was a huge threshold, and becoming a sage was another threshold. Becoming an Empyrean was almost as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, now that Gu Chansha and Lu Baiwei were working together to cultivate the world tree, they wanted the world tree to evolve again and become an existence that was closer to the Hongmeng tree. If it succeeded, the world tree would be called the Little Hongmeng tree. Of course, this was a long process, and it wasn't something that could be accomplished overnight. Right now, what Gu Chansha and Lu Baiwen needed to do was to use their own power to stimulate the world tree. While condensing the tree would give birth to a treasure and then forge a puppet. A strong puppet, of course, couldn't compare to the common people's king, but it had to not lose to a martial emperor. The beginning Emperor Seal, Emperor Life Talisman, and the other treasures were all injected into the newly born puppet. Due to Gu Chansha and Lu Baiyue's activation, many colorful powers surged out of the world tree. This was the common people energy that Gu Chansha had created. Wan Senshi's and Sun Moon Great Thousands powers also surged into the puppet's body. Slowly, the puppet started to change. An embroidered robe appeared on its body, and it gave off a calm aura, like a duke of the court. Very good. The newly created one shall be called the Common People's Marquis. Gu Chansha said, "Originally, I had split the common people's puppets into common people officials, common people's apostles, common people's generals, and common people's kings. However, between the common people's generals and the common people's king, a common people's marquis can be added. In the past, the pillars of the court were the 3 dukes and 8 marquis, with Jusher Marquis as the leader. However, in the future, these dukes and marquis will slowly retreat from politics and change into those selfless puppets that don't know fatigue and don't need a salary. They're truly just. Only then will the common people not have any complaints towards the government." Now, the common people only had praise for the common people's generals and didn't have any complaints. This was because everyone knew that the common people's generals didn't have any selfish motives. They would strictly follow the laws and all sorts of rules and regulations, which was different from the past. The martial saint looked at Gu Chansha and Lu Baiyue's formation and praised. "Not bad, not bad. You can create puppets to replace the officials and solve the bureaucratic problem that previous dynasties couldn't solve. When any dynasty starts to fall, it is because of the corruption of the officials. As the saying goes, a 1,000-mile dam collapses because of an ant's nest. Now that the officials have been solved, everything else will be easy. However, there's another problem, which is that many people study martial arts to become officials and become people above others. Now that the officials are all puppets, it is the same as losing a path to progress. This path is blocked, just like how the meridians of a human body are blocked. It will cause huge problems. This is easy to solve, as everyone has started to cultivate. To cultivate, people don't have time to care about other things. In the future, we will still let people expand our land, but we will never have enough people. Actually, there's another point, which is that the endless world is too big. Such a large area, let everyone have the spirit to explore. Moreover, to fight against the demon race, to become heroes, we will build a monument. Even if they're alive, they can also be sacrificed. As the saying goes, heroes will have a good ending. Heroes will not die. This is how it is. Gu Qinsha said, for example, you sages used to be sacrificed. The power produced by the sacrifice can temporarily awaken you. If the power of the sacrifice is enough, it can even revive you and separate you from the heavenly Tao. Gu Qinsha already had a series of countermeasures. I will establish such a system so that everyone who has contributed to humanity will be sacrificed. This is the so-called reputation in life and in death. Not to mention the reputation people fight for. They can also be sacrificed to obtain a chance to be reborn. Currently, only sages can be sacrificed after death and have a chance to be reborn. Apart from them, even gods can't. However, in the future, we will expand the number of sacrifices so that any hero can be sacrificed and have a chance to be reborn. That would be best. The martial emperor was silent for a moment, then let out a long sigh. The important matters of the country are sacrifices and war. Sacrifices are the most important. Even small country squire clans will worship their ancestors. In fact, if an ordinary person has a bit of spirituality after death, even if they can't be resurrected after a long period of worship, they can still maintain some mysterious feng shui. Indeed, since ancient times, the most important thing for a family was to worship their ancestors. For example, if the head of a family died and was buried in a place with good feng shui, then the sacrifice would be carried out. That way, the head soul would fuse with the family's land and not leak out. This way, the family's land would become more and more spiritually and become a blessed land. After a long time, the family would become a place of great heroes. Moreover, the souls of those generations of family would gather together and not disperse. Under the rich power of the sacrifice, they would show some spirituality and eventually become the family's guardian spirit. Of course, they could not be revived, but they would still transform into another life form. If a family had a strong atmosphere of sacrifice, the family would prosper. On the contrary, if the incense was weak, the ancestors would not show up, and the family would very likely decline. The most important thing every year was the sacrifice of any family or country. The sacrifice was a grand ceremony. In the future, the path that Gu Qinsha opened for humanity was to obtain sacrifices in front of and behind him. Any hero, be it alive or dead, could be sacrificed. Even if one cultivated in the real world, if one was sacrificed by the people, one's cultivation and destiny would explode. For example, the current common people's commander slowly had the aura of being fed by heaven and earth. Wang, Gu Qinsha shook, and instantly the common people's marquis retracted all his strength. He turned into a person similar to the merger of Gu Qinsha and Liu Baiwei. In the end, his form stabilized. This common people's marquis was formed from the primal emperor's seal, emperor life talisman, and the other Xiantian treasures. Along with Wan Senchi's head source, the power of the sun and moon great thousand, the cultivation of the five emperors, along with Gu Qinsha and Liu Baiwei, they worked together to activate the world tree. Many treasures were formed and gathered together to form the common people's marquis. This was why the common people's marquis cultivation was at Tao Realm 36 transformations. He was at embodiment transformation realm, and he was also a divergent. This was because the martial emperor's divergent heart was also merged within. Different from the common people's king, the common people's marquis was completely refined by Gu Chansha and Liu Baiwei. As for the common people's king, it contained the will of North Star Continent. It was true that he was being suppressed right now, but at the most crucial moment, he might awaken and take over the reins of power. Then, the common people's marquis wouldn't be able to wake up. Subordinate greets master. The common people's marquis woke up and the power in his body turned into many different types of freedom. He knelt down in a pious and wise manner. The aura of wisdom was shaking, brewing, spinning, turning into a whirlpool that kept changing. This was already the aura of someone managing the world. Very good, common people's marquis. Gu Chensha said, the common people's king suppresses the medium-sized world and can't move out easily. You can be the one managing the God continent and become the head of the common people's commander. I think that you can create the Eternal Life Wisdom book to strengthen the common people's marquis' divination ability. Martial Saints suddenly suggested. Eternal Life Wisdom book? That is something left by the prehistoric civilization. Legend has it that this thing has unparalleled divination abilities. Gu Qinsha was really knowledgeable and knew what Martial Saint was talking about. This book could deduce everything that existed and didn't exist. To the prehistoric civilization, it had another name, Smart Brain. The phone app that everyone has been waiting for is finally online. App supports offline reading, no ads. Millions of books are free to read. Font and brightness adjustment, night mode, reading progress memory, etc. Please follow WeChat to download. Geja Jinkson, press down for 3 seconds to copy. Chapter 719. Gu Qinsha had absorbed the memories of countless experts. It could be said that he had a great understanding of all magic treasures and cultivation methods in the world. There were very few people in the world who were more knowledgeable than him. However, Gu Qinsha didn't know the whereabouts and secrets of the Book of Immortal Wisdom, as well as the specific method to refine it. If he did, even if he created a replica and injected it into the depths of a puppet's mind, the puppet's computing power would be greatly enhanced. Unfortunately, the Book of Immortal Wisdom had long since disappeared in the long river of time. Even if Gu Qinsha was very knowledgeable, he might not be able to understand its secrets. Therefore, it was very difficult for him to restore the refining method of the book. However, from the looks of it, the Martial Saint seemed to know something. What? Sir Martial Sage seems to know the whereabouts of the Book of Immortal Wisdom? Gu Qinsha asked. I already know many things about the Dharma Saint. I've peeped into all of the Dharma Saint's memories, and after digesting them, they became my resources. But there's nothing about the Book of Immortal Wisdom. I've seen the book before. The reason I was able to become a martial sage was because I had a fortuitous encounter. It was this book that helped me deduce the path of martial arts, which allowed me to reach the founding realm and become a sage. But then the Book of Immortal Wisdom flew away. It really does contain the supreme secrets of immortal wisdom. According to the rumors, this book is the crystallization of the wisdom of the prehistoric civilization. The prehistoric civilization had a few treasures that represented their civilization. One was the epic cruiser, and the other was the Book of Immortal Wisdom. So Sir Martial Sage knows the whereabouts of the Book of Immortal Wisdom? Gu Qinsha asked. That's not it either. The Book of Immortal Wisdom itself is a treasure equivalent to the vast thousand worlds. Although it can't compare to the prehistoric dragon sect, the heavenly sacrificial talisman, or the primordial tree, it is still far above any other innate numinous treasure. Moreover, this book wasn't born from the innate chaos, but the crystallization of the wisdom of the prehistoric civilization. It was created by humans, and by humans who don't know any magical arts at all. The Martial Saint said, the wisdom within it is something that we cultivators can't even imagine. However, I have some clues and have comprehended a small part of the Book of Immortal Wisdom. I can share them with you guys so that your puppets will be more perfect and their deduction abilities will be stronger. As the martial saint spoke, he sent a will over. Gu Chench's expression flickered, and he accepted the will into his body. Immediately, a book appeared in the depths of his sea of consciousness. This book seemed to be all-encompassing, containing all the wisdom in the world. With this wisdom, it was possible for him to live forever and reach the realm of immortality. This book also contained countless knowledge. At this moment, Lu Baiwe had also received the information from this book. She seemed to have a deeper understanding of it than Gu Chensha, because she was proficient in the Great God Massacre technique. This technique itself contained many secrets of the prehistoric civilization. The principles of energy combining, circulating, and vibrating were all excavated from the prehistoric civilization. Therefore, the martial saint's comprehension of the Book of Immortal Wisdom was even more useful to Lu Baiwe. Gu Chensha digested it even faster than Lu Baiwe. He immediately inserted his heavenly Tao technique into the Tree of World. The Tree of World was like a huge factory that absorbed a huge amount of fusion elemental energy. It then started to decompose, refine, and combine them. In the end, it actually created a thin book. It was a counterfeit of the Book of Immortal Wisdom. The thin book was grotesque and motley, filled with countless information, formulas, characters, magical techniques, and calculations. It seemed to contain the deepest mysteries of heaven and earth. Gu Chensha shot the book into Common People's Marquis's body. Instantly, Common People's Marquis started to change. He seemed to have been reborn, reaching a level where everything was accounted for. So. The Marquis changed many times, turning into a ball of light. In the depths of the light, there were numerous pieces of information. Within it, it showed the population, life force, and vegetation of the various provinces, prefectures, counties, towns, and villages of Yonko. The scenes changed faster and faster. It was like in just a few hours, it could sort out all of the population, all of the places, all of the government affairs, all of the big and small matters of the Yonko. The entire complicated imperial court country was in a mess, but the Marquis was able to sort it all out in just a few hours. From there, he was able to give the perfect orders and responses. This was pretty much a miracle. In history, any emperor, even the ancient son of heaven, couldn't compare to him. At least in terms of swift and decisive efficiency, they couldn't compare to the Marquis. Of course, even a swift and decisive emperor would need the cooperation of his subordinates. Now, the Marquis had such a foundation. He had the support of the Common People's King, this heaven-venerable level giant. Below him were 360 Common People's generals who comprehended Chaos Realm at the 29 changes. Apart from that, the students from the Common People's Wish College could help. At least they could follow orders, and instantly the entire country was united. Next is to refine the Common People's officials, Common People's apostles, Common People's generals, Common People's Marquis, and Common People's King. Lu Baiwe said, "The Common People's officials, Common People's apostles, and Common People's generals are easier to create. With our current cultivation, we can create large amounts of these puppets. Of course, calling them puppets doesn't sound nice. We should call them senators. We can start to test it out, but we can't promote it all at once. For example, the few states near Sin Province, because there are many demon race people, we can swap out the officials and change them to Common People's senators." Gu Chensha said, "It can be said that everything is ready now. I will accompany the martial saint to walk around and observe the changes in the people's lives, the destiny of the nation, and the martial fate. Perhaps the martial saint will be able to comprehend something new and advance to the celestial venerable realm." The martial saint had revived and was reborn after calamity. With the sacrifice of the Lord of the Sun and Moon, Gu Tiansha, his strength had reached the peak of the 36 changes. He had embodiment transformation and was even stronger than a martial emperor at his peak. After the Dharma saint was reborn, he quickly became a heaven venerable. Although the martial saint was inferior to the Dharma saint back then, in terms of battle prowess, he still surpassed the Dharma saint. The Dharma saint was ranked first among the many saints. He didn't rely on battle prowess, but on his management ability. He was able to unite the hearts of his family, sect, and even country, allowing them to develop rapidly. His overall strength, sacrifice, and faith were unrivaled in the world. In this aspect, the martial saint couldn't compare to the Dharma saint. Although his martial path was heavenly, if he couldn't compare to the Dharma saint in terms of management, he could only admit defeat. Because of this, the highest realm was for all living beings to be united. Now, the martial saint wanted to observe the world and see the unprecedented grand era. He hoped to comprehend the principles within and finally break through the realm that he couldn't break through to heaven venerable realm. As long as the martial saint could become an Empyrean, he could return to his martial saint's heavenly abode, unify the Wu clan's disciples, and rely on the imperial court. To the calming, immortal department, this would be a tremendous benefit. The significance of this was no small matter. Sir Martial Saint, then I will be your host and bring you around the world. Let's take a look at this picturesque landscape and the most glorious era. Gu Chench's figure flashed as he rose up. The guest will follow the host's wishes. The martial saint smiled. With that, the two of them left the dimensional realm sphere. The martial saint admired the many people of the calming immortal department for being able to cultivate a dimensional realm. He asked a few questions and nodded repeatedly. The calming immortal department had already become a colossus. It was impossible to shake it. Brother Chinsha, you may be thriving with each passing day, but you still need to be on guard against the three great Empyreans. These three are the most sinister, cunning, shameless, and enduring existences in the world. The martial saint warned, I've already taken precautions against this. The three Empyreans are my strongest opponents. Of course, there is also the great spirit god who swallowed the sorcerer ancestor. Gu Chensha and the martial saint began to converse. Speaking of the great spirit god, I also know that this god is far more cunning than any Empyrean. However, even if the three Empyreans join forces, the great spirit god still won't be able to do anything to them. As the martial saint and Gu Chensha spoke, they first landed in the old capital city. Now, besides the imperial palace, which still maintained its original appearance, the city, the streets, everything else had changed. Gu Chensha and the martial saint suddenly appeared on the wide streets of the old capital city. This didn't cause any abrupt changes. The streets of the old capital city weren't paved with stone mud. Instead, they were paved with a green, jade-like substance. It wasn't iron or stone, and it was very comfortable to step on. In the old capital city, there weren't any carriages coming and going like in other cities. Instead, there were people on foot. On both sides of the green jade-colored road were clear ditches. Countless colorful fishes swam in the ditches, spitting out bubbles. These bubbles actually contained some spirit chi. On both sides of the road, there were all kinds of exotic flowers and plants, and their fragrance assailed the nostrils. Some young ladies and scholars wandered among the flowers and the green, jade-colored road. They felt carefree and happy, as though they were in a fairyland. The capital city has actually been transformed into such a state. The martial saint looked at the entire old capital city. It seemed like a huge garden, and the houses were also ancient. The courtyards and pavilions were surrounded by a myriad of flowers. The green jade-like mountains and rivers made one feel more comfortable walking in it than walking in a painting. Right now, the land of China is filled with tall buildings. This is a good thing, but it also destroys the atmosphere. Therefore, we transformed the old capital city into a huge garden. In this garden, people can enjoy and play to their heart's content, washing away the dust in their hearts. Gu Chensha and the martial saint walked slowly, enjoying the atmosphere here. After traveling for half a day, the old capital city was truly a fairyland on earth. Every day, it attracted countless tourists and countless rich people bought courtyards and residences in the capital city. As long as one stayed in the old capital city, the 4 seasons of the year would be filled with the fragrance of flowers, and the spring scenery would be pleasant. It was as though there wasn't a change of seasons, and everything was everlasting. This site's book Chasing Divine tool has been released. All the books are updated at the speed of light, so that the fans don't have to wait in torment and don't miss any exciting chapters. A must-have for bookworms. Follow the official WeChat account 6 press down for 3 seconds to copy. Download this site's reader. Chapter 720. The Heavenly Talisman Emperor moved the capital city to the desolate mountains. That was truly an earth-shattering move. Reality has proven that he was right. There's cities everywhere in the desolate mountains now, and the population is growing rapidly. Plundering resources has eased the pressure on the population, and this is the reason why the empire is able to generate so much profit. The martial sage couldn't help but sigh as he stared at the old capital city. Emperor Father established the foundation for our governance. Only with this foundation can we forge ahead. Firstly, Emperor Father sealed the gods, sweeping away the worship of the gods, unifying our thinking. Otherwise, with the gods causing mischief, we wouldn't be able to deal with them even now. Gu Qinsha explained, I'm most proficient in a martial Tao and the least proficient in governance. Now that I'm touring the Divine Prefecture, I'm able to experience your governance. It's very useful for me to make up for my shortcomings, allowing me to break through to the Ascendant Realm. The martial sage stared at the sky. Sealing the gods is truly a huge move. Ignoring everything else, that God Mahakasayapa is an existence that I can't fight against. He's extremely ancient, and even the 3 ascendants couldn't do anything to him. Back then, even with the might of the Buddhist sect and the divine might of a supreme Buddha, he could only defeat God Mahakasayapa in a Tao debate. Other than that, there's also the god of plagues, the god of medicine, the god of thunder, the god of slaughter, the god of rain, the god of cloud, and the god of lightning. If all of them were still alive, the world would be in chaos. In ancient times, there were 360 true gods, all of whom were conferred titles by the ancient Son of Heaven. They corresponded to the number of heavenly cycles. Of those gods, about half of them perished. However, the other half didn't perish. Instead, their cultivation bases grew stronger and stronger. If they break out one day, the world will be embroiled in a storm of blood. The martial sage said, You guys are strong, but not only are there too many of them, they're also extremely cunning. They won't fight you head-on, but will hide among the people, working together with the 3 ascendants, one Senshi, the immortal lord, the Black Heaven Earth sect, the Dharma saint, and the demon race. You guys will be exhausted, not to mention that the Lord of the Sun and Moon has appeared. That brat wants to take over the world, and I'm afraid you guys won't be able to do anything to him. If I'm not wrong, he's brewing a new plan, which is to break the seal and release the sealed true gods. The martial sage was, after all, a saint of the ancient times. Now that he was resurrected, he had a slight understanding of the world situation, and he could analyze all kinds of flaws and results. Among the sealed true gods, the strongest is naturally God Maha. I wonder what his cultivation base is now. In the ancient times, he was already a heavenly venerable, so it wouldn't be strange for him to be in the heavenly longevity realm now. Of course, compared to the Great Spirit God, there's still a gap. Gu Qinsha said, Other than that, among the many true gods, there are a few who have cultivated to the heavenly venerable realm. True gods were different from deity realm experts. True gods were experts who had obtained the support of the true God throne. Their lifespan and fate energy were 10 times stronger than ordinary deity realm experts. Some true gods used this advantage to gather faith, obtain fortuitous encounters, and comprehend oddities. Unknowingly, they tried to break through to the heavenly venerable realm, and there were some who succeeded. If all the true gods sealed by the heavenly talisman emperor were to break out, it would indeed cause great chaos, even surpassing the demon disaster. Thinking about it, they were all-powerful true gods who enjoyed the faith of all living beings. Now that they were suddenly deprived and sealed, it was hard to tell whether they were still alive or not. Once they were released, they would definitely be filled with resentment towards the heavenly talisman emperor and even the imperial court, swearing to destroy their foundations. Although the tranquil immortal department was powerful now, they had enemies on all sides. At the most critical moment, they might suffer an avalanche of defeat. Gu Qinsha had also been thinking about this problem. Hence, he kept forming alliances. For example, he roped in the Cosmos Mystical Sect, Tai Mystical Sect, and Heavenly Dance Mystical Sect. Now, he was treating the martial sage well, and the Wu clan had also joined the Tranquil Immortal Department. The two of them stayed in the old capital city for a long time before they slowly came out. They bought a small boat and set off from the canal, preparing to travel around the country. The boat that the martial sage and Gu Qinsha bought was created by the Heavenly Craftsman Department. It was silver-white in shape and looked very sturdy and beautiful. The boat was powered by a type of crystal. The Heavenly Craftsman Department called it Energy Block. It was the crystallization and technology of the prehistoric civilization. The martial sage and Gu Qinsha stood at the bow of the boat. The boat naturally moved forward quickly, braving the wind and breaking the waves. It was as fast as an arrow leaving the bow. The canal was originally very prosperous. In the 14th year of the Heavenly Talisman Emperor, Gu Qinsha sat on Liu Baiyue's boat and passed through the canal to the border of Xian province. On the way, they even encountered the attack of the demonic Black Bat, a second transformation stage, Dao Realm 9 bulls and 2 tigers. The two of them only arrived safely after defeating the demonic Black Bat. Thinking back to what happened in the past, almost 20 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Gu Qinsha felt like it was a dream. Back then, Gu Qinsha was only 15 years old. Now he was almost 35 years old. According to the rules of the past, he was already a middle-aged man. However, now that he had cultivated the heavenly Dao technique, the passage of time could no longer leave any marks on his body. In fact, the passage of time could no longer affect his body. In truth, age didn't matter to him anymore. This was because time and time were just subjects of the heavenly Dao. How could a subject be above a king? Back then, Father opened the canal and connected all the waterways in the world, eliminating floods and droughts. The land was ripe and famine was eliminated. At the same time, the transportation of resources was smooth and convenient. The world entered an unprecedented golden age. Gu Qinsha introduced the place to the martial sage. The two of them drove the boat on the river. The river water was always rolling forward. The surging Yangtze River flows to the east, washing away all heroes. The martial sage was deep in thought. On the river, there were hundreds of boats. There were merchant ships, warships, flying boats, and all of them were in an orderly manner. The river was much wider and deeper than when the Heavenly Talisman Emperor was here. Every year, the Calming Celestial Department would send out numerous cultivators to clean up the canals in the central plains of the Divine Continent. If any river was not cleaned up, it would be blocked in 2 or 3 years, causing all kinds of floods. In the past, cleaning up the river was a huge project, especially for the canals in the country. But now, the Calming Celestial Department had magical arts and machinery. They could easily transform the rivers and mountains according to the most perfect method. This network of canals covers the entire country. It's a huge project. The difficult part isn't the excavation, but the destruction of the various feng shui structures along the way. This will incur the opposition of the people in the world, even the aristocratic families and various clans. The martial sage said, for example, our Wu clan. If the canal passes through Wu province, it will actually change the feng shui of the entire Wu clan, destroying the layout that the Wu clan has been operating for thousands of years. The Wu clan will fight to the death to not agree. Lord Martial Sage is right. Gu Qinsha knew that the emperors of the past dynasties all knew the benefits of digging canals. Unfortunately, no great emperor, not even a martial emperor, could do this. Digging canals would destroy the feng shui of the various provinces and change the layout of the divine continent. Countless forces, even immortal Dao sects, would not allow such a thing to happen. Think about it. As a great aristocratic family, with thousands of years of savings, I finally bought a land with a radius of 1,000 miles and built a huge feng shui formation for the family. But if the imperial court suddenly wanted to build a canal and connect your family's feng shui formation, it would cause severe damage and destroy the layout of 1,000 years. It would be strange if the aristocratic family did not fight to the death. All the clans in the divine continent valued feng shui formations greatly. In fact, the feng shui formation was also the most important part, greatly benefiting the luck of the clan. The harmony between heaven and man. The feng shui formation was the relationship between heaven and man. Once it was destroyed, the clan's luck would decline, and there would be many tribulations in the future. This was equivalent to digging up the ancestral graves, no different from exterminating the clan. And the Heavenly Talisman Emperor's Canal had destroyed the feng shui of countless aristocratic families. If it could be carried out smoothly, the twists and turns of the story, the open and veiled struggles, could almost be written into a heavy epic. The martial saint believed that if he were the ruler of the world, he wouldn't be able to accomplish this. Many airships whizzed past the clouds in the sky. This was one of the means of transportation in the Yonko. There were railways and centipede-like iron carriages on land, all sorts of boats on the canal, and airships in the sky. This was the equivalent of a person with unobstructed meridians. The speed of blood circulation was like lightning, the speed of a tempest, and the strength of one's vitality far exceeded that of any dynasty. The martial saint leisurely observed, comprehending the local customs and atmosphere of the nation. He found that it was completely different from his ancient understanding. It seemed that the divine continent was no longer the same as before, and that everything was subtly changing. The two landed in Stone Province. After passing through the canal of the old capital, they arrived at Stone Province. The largest clan in Stone Province was the Yashur family, the family of Marquis Dashi. Marquis Dashi's position was transcendent, an expert born from stone. He was sworn brothers with the Heavenly Talisman Emperor and was still an important pillar of the imperial court, assisting the calming immortal department in many matters. Many of the Shur family's disciples had also joined the department, and Marquis Dashi's son, Shur Zhongshan, was now one of the upper echelons. Marquis Dushur had been a deity a long time ago. Ever since the calming immortal agency came to power, he had the people in his family assist the agency while he hid in the mountains of the Stone Province and cultivated in seclusion, attempting to cultivate to a higher level. Gu Qinsha and the martial sage had traveled the world. Since they had come to the Stone Province, they had to meet Marquis Dashi. Firstly, it was to strengthen their relationship. Secondly, it was to let the martial sage guide Marquis Dashi in some martial arts. In the future, the Wu clan and the Shur clan would also have dealings. After all, the warrior saint was the teacher of the martial Taoist ancestor of mankind. Marquis Dashi had a great destiny. Gu Qinsha faintly felt that this person might even be a key figure in the future tribulations. Moreover, Marquis Dashi had recently gone into seclusion. Who knew what fortuitous encounter he had? Gu Qinsha wanted to know more about it. Marquis Jushur was the most senior official in the court. Our official mobile phone's newest reader app has been released. New products updated daily. Huge amount of content. Small size. Less traffic. No ads. More convenient to find. Quickly follow the official WeChat account Jai Konglashi. Press and hold for 3 seconds to copy. Download mobile app. Chapter 721. If Marquis Jushur wasn't an important character, the Heavenly Talisman Emperor wouldn't have sworn brotherhood with him. From Gu Qinsha's point of view, the Heavenly Talisman Emperor's every action contained a profound will. The reason why the calming immortal bureau could run smoothly was because it inherited the foundation laid down by the Heavenly Talisman Emperor. In fact, the Heavenly Talisman Emperor made Wu Dangkong the regent and Gu Xinsha the crown prince. There must be a series of plans. Gu Qinsha could already guess some of them. Because of this, he still retained the authority of Wu Dangkong as the regent and didn't abolish Gu Xuansha's position. He believed that these two chess pieces would be of great use one day. Very soon, Gu Qinsha and the martial sage arrived at the Shi clan. The stone province was filled with mountain ranges and jagged rocks. There were few fields and many large mountains. Since ancient times, it had not been very prosperous and belonged to the barren mountains and unruly rivers. There were many strongholds in the mountains, and each stronghold had almost become an independent kingdom. Every dynasty and dynasty was equivalent to a chieftain. The Shi clan used to be one of the chieftains, but they were subdued by the Heavenly Talisman Emperor. Now, many of the mountains in the Shi prefecture had been leveled, turning into fertile fields and waterways. Not only that, they even created a huge feng shui layout. Because the Shi clan submitted to the Heavenly Talisman Emperor, they had been flourishing. The other aristocratic clans had weakened because they resisted the calming immortal bureau, but the Shi clan had received much support from the bureau. The Shi clan was huge now. It occupied a mountain range with a circumference of hundreds of miles. The mountain range was surrounded by the shape of a dragon. Within the mountain range, a lot of spiritual energy condensed in the sky into clouds in the shape of dragons and tigers, floating without dispersing. The Shi clan's luck is flourishing. There must be many geniuses in the clan. The martial sage looked at the mountain range where the Shi clan was located, concealing wind and gathering qi, refining spiritual qi. Although this feng shui layout isn't as good as the Wu clan's 5 mountains I designed in the past, it's still a top-notch technique. Seems like this marquis juicer has already reached the sage realm. However, the Shi clan's luck is too flourishing recently. I'm afraid there's a crisis hidden within. Crisis. Gu Qinsha looked off into the distance. Using his heaven-down magic eyes, he could see some tribulation energy in the Shi clan's flourishing destiny. The so-called tribulation qi was a bad omen of the future, and it appeared in one's destiny. Fate was also a form of choice in the future. If one's destiny contained a lot of tribulation energy, it meant that there would be a great calamity in the future. However, the tribulation energy was hidden very deeply. Generally speaking, it was very difficult for people to discover it. It was especially so for him. He was in the midst of the tribulation, and his 5 skandhas were all lost. It was very difficult to discover the existence of tribulations. However, Gu Qinsha was good at discovering tribulations, and his martial sage realm was also very high. He could break through to the heavenly venerate realm at any time. Actually, the reason why Gu Qinsha traveled with the martial sage was because he hoped that the martial sage could break through and comprehend some kind of secret. This way, he could witness the entire process and absorb all the experience of the martial sage's breakthrough. To him, it was a huge resource. If he obtained this experience, it could pave the way for him to ascend to the god level. If the martial sage broke through to the heavenly venerate realm, his celestial calmness department would have another heavenly venerate expert as an ally. It would be very beneficial for future tribulations and battles. Actually, even if the martial sage didn't break through to the heavenly venerate realm, he was still at the peak of the 36 transformations. His cultivation was also a giant, enough to support a profound sect for a long time. Chang Weiyang also cultivated this way. Now, she was still fighting Do Yu in the Lost Land amidst the space-time turbulence. No one knew what the result would be. If Chang Weiyang won and ascended to the heavenly venerate realm, that would be wonderful. The Celestial Calmness Department's alliance would have another true heavenly venerate expert to hold the line. Although the King of Common Life was a heavenly venerate and could use all kinds of heavenly venerate abilities, the North Star will still existed. There would always be some hidden dangers. Marquis Dusher's aura is in the depths of this mountain range. Let's go find him directly. Gu Qinsha looked for a while. The two of us will travel the world secretly. We can't be too big. Otherwise, it will attract the attention of some people. That's good. The martial sage nodded. Marquis Dusher is a stone spirit born from the heavens and earth. His fortuitous encounter is no small matter. I want to meet him. The two directly passed through layers of formations and arrived at the center of the mountain range where the Shur clan was. At the center of the mountain range where the Shur clan was, there was a small mountain. It wasn't very tall, as if it had shrunk into the earth. It didn't show off its abilities and was very modest. This small mountain was where Marquis Dusher cultivated in seclusion. The earth is in the mountain, and the divination is modest. The martial sage nodded. It could be seen that Marquis Dusher is a modest gentleman. He knows how to hide and when to advance and retreat. This is rare. In terms of geomancy, the layout of the mountain in the center, seeming to be hidden in the earth, was called the modest divination. It could nourish one's nature, be modest and courteous, and spread good fortune. If the mountain in the center was higher than the surroundings, it would be the divination, and it wouldn't last long. Gu Qinsha and the martial sage arrived before the mountain. They didn't enter immediately. Instead, they sent out a thought to inform Marquis Dusher. Kacha. Not long after Gu Qinsha sent out the thought, a small spatial crack appeared. Then, space collapsed slightly, and Gu Qinsha and the martial sage were brought into the mountain. This small mountain seemed to be condensed from some kind of magic treasure. This magic treasure was extremely powerful, almost on par with the liberation bow and the constant and impermanence arrows. In the belly of the mountain was a cave dwelling. This cave dwelling had a clear spring, and some flowers and fruits were planted there. The light was bright, and it seemed to be a different world. Marquis Dusher sat on a stone mat in the center of the cave dwelling. When he saw Gu Qinsha and the martial sage arrive, he immediately stood up and bowed deeply. Greetings, Your Highness and Lord Martial Sage. Oh, how did you recognize me as the martial sage so quickly? The martial sage was somewhat surprised. Your temperament and martial way are like the pillars of the firmament, supporting the 8 extremities. Since ancient times, only Lord Martial Sage has had such a martial aura. Congratulations on Lord Martial Sage's resurrection and alliance with the Imperial Court. This is a blessing for the common people. At the very least, when disasters descend in the future, our Imperial Court and the common people will have another layer of protection, said Marquis Dusher. Marquis, your cultivation has progressed so quickly. You reached the 33 transformations Saint Heart realm and became a sage? Gu Qinsha asked. Also, this small mountain seems to be formed from the boulder that Marquis was born on. This is a magic treasure. Could it be? That's right. This stone is called the Stone of Infinity, also known as the Stone of Heaven. It is one of the 36 treasures of infinity. I am the reincarnation of the Stone of Heaven. Marquis Dusher said, the land of infinity is also known as the Heaven Realm. When it was first born, it nurtured the 36 treasures. Only when the Heaven Realm is about to collapse and the Great Tao no longer exists, will the 36 treasures appear and reincarnate as humans. If all 36 treasures are gathered, they can become the Lord of Infinity, the Lord of the Heaven Realm, and can use the various powers of the land of infinity. I only recently understood my identity. At the same time, Grand Tutor Wenhong is also the reincarnation of the Cauldron of Infinity. His power is above mine. Among the 36 treasures, the Cauldron's power ranks in the top 3. Gu Qinsha already knew about the 36 treasures of infinity. The land of infinity was also known as the Heaven Realm, and Gu Qinsha also knew about it. Grand Tutor Wenhong had obtained the Cauldron of Infinity. This was a huge, fortuitous encounter, and it was very likely that he would cultivate to a terrifying level. Therefore, Gu Chansha boldly let him go to the Great Might dynasty to suppress the Black-Yellow Dragon Emperor and obtain this dynasty of 50 billion people. The weight of the cauldron represented the country, and it was no small matter. It is indeed an unprecedented great tribulation. The martial sage sighed. I have existed since ancient times, but I have never seen the birth of the master of the sun and moon, let alone the birth of the 36 treasures of infinity. Now, these things that have never appeared before are appearing one after another. This is not a good thing. It is said that if the 36 treasures of infinity are gathered together, their majestic power will bless one's body. Then, a magic treasure stronger than the Hongmeng tree, the heaven offering talisman, and even the dragon gate of the prehistoric world will be born. Even now, Marquis Dashi, as long as your cultivation level increases and you inject more faith and sacrificial power into this stone, the power of this treasure will become stronger and stronger. There is almost no limit. The 36 treasures of infinity were, in essence, the best among the magic treasures. Even primordial treasures, primordial spiritual treasures, and even the various powerful existences condensed on the Hongmeng tree could not compare to the 36 treasures of infinity. In this case, any one of the 36 treasures of infinity, if they could unleash their greatest power, would definitely be comparable to the immortal, slaying, God-punishing gourd. However, whether it was Marquis Dashi's Stone of Infinity or Grand Tutor Wenhong's Cauldron of Infinity, they had not accumulated enough power and could not unleash their true power. If they could gather enough sacrificial power, even a heavenly lord would not be able to kill them. Therefore, Wenhong had gone to the Great Might dynasty to gather enough sacrificial power. Only by gathering countless people to worship this cauldron, causing the fate in the cauldron to boil, could it grow and transform. From there, the endless power of the land of infinity would be gathered, which was also known as the power of the heaven realm. The microscopic world, the minor kiliacosm, the medium kiliacosm, the great kiliacosm, and the endless world. The endless world was also known as the heaven realm. It was truly unique and stood at the pinnacle, the strongest and largest world. In the entire space-time universe, there was no existence that could compare to the endless world. In the depths of the endless space-time turbulence, there were many great kiliacosms, such as the central great kiliacosm, the black-yellow great kiliacosm, the magical kiliacosm, the Saha great kiliacosm, and so on. However, there was only one endless world, and there was only one in the divine continent. Your Highness, Marquis Dashi said, after I became a sage, I understood many things. The people who reincarnate from the 36 treasures of infinity are extremely powerful, and even far surpass those who reincarnated from the stars. These people will appear in the divine continent one after another in the future. When that time comes, I'm afraid they will stir up huge waves, especially the reincarnation of the number 1 infinity sword. That will be extremely terrifying. With the sword of the heaven realm, he will slay everything and conquer everywhere. Chapter 722. Thousands of stars have been reincarnated into humans and scattered among the people. Most of them were still in hiding. The endless 36 treasures had also been reincarnated into humans. At present, only 2 of them had shown any signs, Grand Preceptor Wenhong and Marquis Dashi. The rest were still shrouded in mist. It was impossible to deduce. Your Highness, Marquis Dashi said, as the reincarnation of the endless 36 treasures, I can sense people like me. If I'm not wrong, F.A. Wuxian and Jing Xiu are both reincarnations of the endless 36 treasures. It's just that they haven't obtained their true bodies yet. But one day, they will obtain their true bodies and even come to kill Wenhong and me, seizing our treasures and souls and merging them into their bodies. The reincarnations of the endless 36 treasures can also kill each other. With every treasure they obtain, their strength will increase by many times. Of course, if I join forces with Grand Preceptor Wenhong, our strength will also increase by a lot. I hope that one day, Your Highness will be able to gather all the reincarnations of the endless land and open the deepest secrets of the heaven realm. That way, you will be able to better understand His Majesty's realm. Perhaps you will be able to share some of His Majesty's pressure, allowing His Majesty to divert some of his attention and return to the mortal world. I understand Marquis's thoughts. Gu Qinsha already understood Marquis Dashi's thoughts. These old officials all hoped that Heavenly Talisman Emperor would reappear in the mortal world and the imperial court. But now, it was very likely that Heavenly Talisman Emperor was entangled with the Heavenly Tao and couldn't divert any attention to interfere with the changes in the mortal world. Fa Wuxian and Jing Xiao have lost repeatedly in their battles against our tranquil immortal department, but they haven't suffered any serious injuries. In these years, their cultivation has advanced extremely quickly, especially Jing Xiao, who has long since cultivated to the God realm. In the last battle, I didn't kill him in passing in order to quickly obtain the North Star realm, leaving behind a disaster. Gu Qinsha knew that whether it was Fa Wuxian or Jing Xiao, they both contained great destiny. Originally, Jing Xiao had also obtained the position of the true god of the Lu god, which was like adding wings to a tiger. He colluded with the Dharma Saint and established the Holy Sama Empire in the depths of the desert. Fortunately, Gu Qinsha had seized the opportunity to plunder the North Star continent and took away the deity position. Now, the three true god positions of longevity, fortune, and fortune were in the hands of longevity bliss god, and they were considered the assets of tranquil immortal department. In time, longevity bliss god's cultivation might not reach the Empyrean realm, but it was not impossible for him to become a martial sage. But if Jing Xiao obtained one of the endless 36 treasures, that would be even more terrifying than the position of a true god. Back then, the throne of real god Lu Shun hadn't belonged to him. After all, his element wasn't compatible with him, and the degree of compatibility wasn't high, so it was difficult for him to unleash all of his power. However, if he had obtained an infinity treasure that was compatible with his element, it would be completely different. He could even gather the power of sacrifices from the endless treasures and extract the power of the heavenly realm. Although the power of the heavenly realm couldn't compare to the power of the heavenly Tao, it still surpassed the power of the boundless universe. Of course, to extract the power of the heavenly realm from the endless treasures, he would need to gather a huge number of sacrifices. Among the many treasures, the Heaven Sacrificial Talisman, the Desolate Dragon Gate, and the Hongmeng Tree were special existences. They belonged to the heavenly origin level magic treasures, which were equivalent to the boundless world. And the endless 36 treasures, individually, were not as good as these three magic treasures. But if they were gathered together and formed a whole, they could activate the power of the endless land, which surpassed any of the three magic treasures. Because the endless land itself was the heavenly realm, and its body was an existence that was second only to the heavenly Tao. If one wanted to compare, any of the endless 36 treasures might be comparable to the immortal, slaying, God-punishing gourd. Jing Xiao and Fa Wuxian have completely pledged their allegiance to the Dharma Saint. If both of them obtain one of the endless 36 treasures, I'm afraid the Dharma Saint's power will expand again, and the Dharma Saint will probably make use of their power to improve his cultivation further. The martial saint said calmly, "The Dharma Saint is above me." Deep in his heart, he does not have any feelings but the calculation of his own laws and the perfection of laws. To a certain extent, he is no longer a human, but the embodiment of a law. This is because he gave up something to make himself incomparably powerful. The Dharma Saint and Wu Dangkong joined forces to devour her and the Heaven Sacrificial Talisman. Gu Qinsha said, "It seems that he will also devour the endless treasures of Fa Wuxian and Jing Xiao. If he succeeds in devouring the two endless treasures, it is very likely that he will reach the heavenly longevity realm and become an antique like the immortal master, Wan Senshi, and Xingqiangshi. So I hope that your highness can obtain the endless treasures as soon as possible, lest they fall into the hands of ambitious giants like the Dharma Saint. Marquis Jushi's face was a little pale, as if he had thought of something. Obtaining the Infinity Stone has indeed greatly improved my cultivation, but it also contains great risks. If it were other connate spiritual treasures, it would not be a big deal. After all, it is not worth fighting for. But the endless 36 treasures are different. Obtaining any one of them means that one may obtain the power of the heaven realm. Even if it is just a trace, it can temper one's body and increase one's cultivation extremely quickly. Not only can one obtain the essence of the land of infinity, the profound meaning of the heaven realm. So many people actually want to kill me and covet my Infinity Stone. I know this. So when I came with the Martial Saint, I saw that although the Sure family is prosperous, there's a great tribulation hidden in the depths. So it is because you are the reincarnation of the Infinity Stone. Although it is great luck, it is also a great tribulation. This is what they say. Fortune lies in misfortune, and misfortune lies in fortune. Gu Qinsha nodded. Don't worry about this, Marquis. Even an existence like one Senshi cannot harm you at all. Gu Qinsha had rescued Yuan Lu from the hands of Wan Senshi and had gained confidence and prestige. This time, Wan Senshi had suffered a great loss and lost all face. The new divine prefecture was taken away by Gu Qinsha, becoming Yuan Lu's minor thousand realm, hanging on the branch of the world tree. All the experts in the world, immortals, demons, and demon immortals, knew of this matter and were even more afraid of the calming immortal department. Even the demons did not dare to prepare for a large-scale attack. So the devil calamity was still dragging on. Actually, your highness must pay attention. The 3 dukes and 8 marquises of the imperial court are all reincarnations of the Infinity 36 treasures. Others may not be able to sense it, but His Majesty has long since sensed it, so He has nurtured us well. Your highness must pay attention to this and not let your guard down, lest the other marquises be roped in or taken away. At this time, the Marquis of Jushi once again threw out an earth-shattering sentence. What? Hearing this, even Gu Qinsha was somewhat shocked. The 3 dukes and 8 marquises of the imperial court are all reincarnations of the Infinity Treasures? But wasn't the Iron Blood Marquis the reincarnation of the War God? This is just a prince. The Iron Blood Marquis transformed into the Iron Blood War Banner. In truth, it has nothing to do with the War God. It is the celestial banner of the Infinity 36 Treasures, also known as the Infinity Banner. It's just that he is yet to awaken, but I'm afraid that he has gradually come to understand. The Marquis of Jushi said, the other marquises have also come to understand their past and present lives. They have been secretly accumulating strength, preparing to make some moves. You all are also in contact with each other, right? Gu Qinsha asked. Your Highness' discerning eyes are like torches, the Marquis of Jushi said. We are, after all, His Majesty's subjects, and our lives belong to His Majesty. Now that His Majesty is no longer here, it's true that we are loyal to your Highness. But in truth, all of us still hope that His Majesty will return, and so we are preparing a grand plan. There's nothing wrong with that. In the end, everything in the Imperial Court is managed by our calming immortal department, but Imperial Father has long since decided on the actual structure. The calming immortal department, the celestial designer department, the Crown Prince, and Wu Dankong. These 4 great powers keep each other in check. However, the Crown Prince and Wu Dankong both harbor ulterior motives, wanting to bring disaster to the world. We have no choice but to come out and set things right. Gu Qinsha said, it seems that there is something wrong with the Crown Prince's fate. He should be the reincarnation of some almighty being? It's very likely. His Majesty never does anything without a goal. Even if Wu Dankong and the Crown Prince are going against the grain now, I'm afraid that there will be unexpected variables in the future. The Marquis of Jushi said, under the management of the calming immortal department, the imperial court can be said to be flourishing, and the population is still expanding. However, there are also many hidden dangers. First of all, the internal conflict is the celestial designer department. No one can do anything to the immortal master, and with Gu Huansha and the Maha family working together, there are great hidden dangers. This power is actually above the calming immortal department. The immortal master is Imperial Father's woman, and Gu Huansha is a princess. Their statuses are no small matter. The immortal master is also a giant of the primal chaos. Strictly speaking, her true strength is probably above Wan Senshi. Although we are both at the heavenly longevity realm, I have fought with Wan Senshi time and time again and have gained the upper hand. However, the immortal master gives me the feeling that she is truly unfathomable. I don't know where her limits lie. Gu Qinsha said, right now, the Celestial Designer Department is manufacturing some machines from the prehistoric civilization and has a huge market share among the people. They are also developing genetic modification drugs and have drawn in a large number of people. There is a great hidden danger in this. Right now, it's because of the devil calamity. All the heat comes from the external pressure, and if the devil calamity is gone, many internal conflicts will probably erupt. In addition, there are some ambitious people who add fuel to the fire, and there will immediately be a calamity that can't be stopped. Not to mention that we still have a great enemy that is even more terrifying than Wan Senshi, and that is the Sun Moon Lord, Gu Tiansha. This person actually said that he is a powerful existence born from the conflict between Imperial Father and the Heavenly Tao, and that the Sun Moon Lord is just another minor identity for him. The Sun Moon Lord is extremely terrifying in itself. If Gu Tiansha is really an existence born from the conflict between the Heavenly Talisman Emperor and the Heavenly Tao, then there is no way to describe it with words. The martial sage was someone who had karma with Gu Tiansha, and even his resurrection was caused by Gu Tiansha's worship. According to my deduction, Gu Tiansha is not lying, because even if he is the Sun Moon Lord, just the power of worship alone cannot bring me back to life. Only if he is an existence born from the conflict between the Heavenly Talisman Emperor and the Heavenly Tao can directly worship him and bring me back to life. Important notice, this site's free app, no ads, no errors, fast updates, members synchronized bookshelves, text size adjustment, reading brightness adjustment, better reading experience. Please pay attention to the official WeChat account. AppSid, hold down for 3 seconds to copy. Download the free reader. Chapter 723. The situation is chaotic. I can't figure it out. When Gu Qinsha heard the martial sage's words, he let out a long sigh. He had only fought with Gu Tiansha twice. The first time, Gu Tiansha had the upper hand. The second time, Gu Qinsha had gotten back at him. Now, it could be said that one had lost and one had won. Both sides were equally matched, but it was because of this that he felt how terrifying Gu Tiansha was. His speed of improvement was probably above his, and he had huge potential. This was the kind of person he was wary of. The reason he wasn't afraid of Immortal Master Wan was because this person had already reached the peak and had no more room for growth. The Heaven Longevity Realm was the limit that living beings could reach. To break through to the Heaven Primal Realm was simply impossible. As for Gu Qinsha, he had room to improve. As long as he reached God level, he would be able to gain the upper hand against Wan Senshi. If he became a saint, he would be able to defeat Wan Senshi. If he became a celestial lord, then killing Wan Senshi wouldn't be a problem. Wan Senshi's current predicament was to stay where he was and wait for Gu Qinsha to catch up. But Gu Tiansha was different. He was probably at God level now, between 30 to 32 Tao realm. He hadn't become a saint yet and had huge room for growth. More importantly, even if he was at God level, if he used the power of the Sun Moon Great Thousand World, no one in the world would be able to do anything to him. There's only one way to kill the Master of Sun Moon, Gu Tiansha, Marquis Jusher said. That is to gather the endless 36 treasures and use the power of the heaven realm to suppress him. No one is more suitable than Your Highness. Your Highness' Heavenly Tao technique allows you to control the power of the heaven realm. Right now, Gu Tiansha was still making use of the powers of the Sun and Moon Great Thousand. At the end of the day, the Sun and Moon Great Thousand were still the Sun and Moon of the Endless Mainland, and were merely a part of the Endless Mainland itself. If we can obtain all 36 treasures, we'll be able to suppress Gu Tiansha and make him unable to use the power of the Great Thousand Suns and Moons. In that case, he'll be like a tiger with its claws and teeth chopped off. He'll no longer have the ability to do evil, and it'll all be up to King to deal with. As long as King devours this kid, I'm afraid that you'll be able to reach a height that no one has ever reached since ancient times. This is also the only way to deal with the Master of the Sun and Moon, Gu Tiansha. The martial saints said, otherwise this child will be the source of the chaos, the source of the chaos. Furthermore, there is no one who can restrain this child now. Even if the Dharma saint, one Senshi, the immortal master, and the others join forces, they still can't do anything to him. Right now, he's relying on the power of the Sun-Moon Great Kiliacosm. If he can't use it, then that's easy. My Heaven Tao magic is the only thing he has to worry about. Gu Chensha said, actually, my greatest reliance now is the Permitha, Golden Mountain, and the common people's wish sphere, these two-dimensional realms. If I don't have the strength of these two-dimensional realms, then the most I can do is stir up a storm. I won't be able to truly rule the world. Your Highness, you still can't fully use the power of the Buddhist sect's Permitha, Golden Mountain. I'm afraid that the actual control is still in the hands of some hidden heavyweights of the Buddhist sect. Those heavyweights may not be sincere in allying with us. In the future, it's very likely that these heavyweights will turn against us. I think that Your Highness should be careful. It's best if you refine the Permitha Golden Mountain at the critical moment, Marquis Dusher said. I've already made arrangements for this matter. Right now, I can only use about 10 to 20% of the Permitha Golden Mountain's power, and I haven't even touched the core yet. The core of the Permitha Golden Mountain is naturally controlled by many hidden heavyweights of the Buddhist sect. After all, this is the foundation of the Buddhist sect. But I reformed the Buddhist sect's doctrines, causing the Buddhist sect civilization to fuse with our Yonko civilization and develop a free and easy Zen culture. In this way, the Buddhist sect civilization has no choice but to follow our path. Otherwise, it will wither away and shrink once again. Last time, I obtained the complete inheritance of the Buddhist sect civilization. I know almost all of their cultivation methods, history, and experiences. This time, I'm combining with the Buddhist sect. As the Zen culture develops, the Buddhist sect can't do without me. This is an irreversible trend. Therefore, no matter what, the Buddhist sect is basically tied to the chariot of our calming immortal department. Of course, no matter what, it's best to control one's own strength. I will eventually bring the Permitha Golden Mountain under my control. In addition, I will refine the world tree into another existence, hanging all kinds of worlds on it. I can hold them in my hand and carry them with me. This is the most perfect way, but I'm afraid that I can only achieve this after I ascend to the Celestial Master level. It's absolutely impossible for me to do that now. My top priority is to cultivate to the God rank. Then, everything will be easy. Your Highness has naturally calculated everything. Now that you have a card up your sleeve, I feel completely relieved. Marquis Boulder said, after my conversation with Your Highness, I should know where my calamity lies. Now that I have the endless stone to protect me and become one with the treasure, the truth is that if I want to escape, even an Empyrean might not be able to kill me. But if it's the Sun-Moon's sovereign Gu Tiansha, then I will be in grave danger. If Gu Tiansha is really an existence born from the entanglement of the Emperor and the Heavenly Tao, then he naturally knows that the 36 endless treasures pose an extremely great threat to him. Thus, he will think of all sorts of methods to collect the 36 endless treasures. Thus, to him, I'm a target that he must suppress, kill, refine, and swallow. My calamity must also originate from him. Understand. Contact the others and have the 3 dukes and 8 marquises gather together. Then, bring them to my dimensional realm. Let's gather them first, which means that we have gathered 11 boundless treasures. Using my heavenly Tao magic, these boundless treasures will be able to unleash immense power. This is also a good thing. Gu Qinsha said, I will immediately take care of this. Marquis Boulder nodded. Gu Qinsha took out a dozen leaves. Take these leaves, 1 for each person. If you encounter any danger, these leaves will automatically activate the strength of the world and protect you. At the same time, you will immediately be transported to the dimensional realm of the common life's wish sphere. Thank you, Your Highness. Marquis Boulder received the leaves. I never thought that visiting Marquis today would have such a harvest. Gu Qinsha said, Sir Marshal Sage and I will still need to travel around. Marquis, you must be careful. That Gu Tiansha has eaten a loss from me, so he will definitely retaliate. This sort of character is simply impossible to guard against. If the Sun Moon ruler Gu Qinsha learned from Gu Qinsha in the past, it would be difficult to find him. Besides Gu Qinsha using the heavenly Tao laws, no one else, not even Wan Xinshi, will be able to find Gu Tiansha's whereabouts. Of course, if Gu Tiansha wanted to learn from Gu Qinsha in the past, he would also have a great deal of fear. First, there was the heavenly talisman Great Emperor's golden medallion within the common life's wish sphere. This was his #1 trump card. In addition, Gu Qinsha's heavenly Tao laws could also reflect his figure. Thus, Gu Qinsha decided to forget about such a risky matter. This person wouldn't do such a thing. I've collected all 36 endless treasures. Gu Qinsha pondered this question. Since this was the case, then he had to harvest Fa Wuxian and Jing Xiao. Fa Wuxian was born in the legalism school and was an innate saint from birth. He was already extraordinary and radiant. But because of the subsequent tribulations, many experts appeared and Fa Wuxian's radiance gradually dimmed. But as an important character in the Grand Era, Fa Wuxian was definitely not a benevolent character. Now that there was a possibility that he was the reincarnation of the 36 endless treasures, it was time to harvest him. Gu Qinsha could tell that Fa Wuxian was a person like him. From the moment he came out until now, he was arrogant and untamed. He viewed all the heroes in the world as nothing. He almost felt that he was the unrivaled main character in the world and wouldn't tolerate the slightest grievance. Once, Fa Wuxian even wanted to challenge the heavenly talisman Great Emperor Gu Taxian, believing that he was the only one worthy to rule the universe. But later on, he completely despaired. But his ambition was still there, and it had already turned into an obsession. He wholeheartedly went against the calming Immortal Bureau. This kind of person couldn't be changed no matter what. The only way was to directly suppress and kill him. As for Jing Xiao, he was even more terrifying than Fa Wuxian. He was calm, concealed, and had many tricks up his sleeves. If Fa Wuxian fought against him, even he would be at a disadvantage. After getting Marquis Dashi to contact other people, Gu Qinsha left the Shi clan and continued to travel around the Divine Continent with the Martial Sage. After the Shi Prefecture was the Xian Prefecture. The Xian Prefecture is extremely vast. Since ancient times, it has been called a country, the Xian Dynasty Ancient Country. The Martial Sage walked along the canal and observed the surrounding scenery. He discovered that the cities on both sides were flourishing and the buildings were getting taller and taller. Some of the tall buildings on the side of the canal actually had more than 100 floors. They weren't made of wood, but were made of steel mixed with stone and mud. There were also all kinds of huge glass. Under the sunlight, they were simply sparkling and translucent, like a paradise on earth. There were many such tall buildings. The people's attire also started to change, from loose robes to tight and capable ones. Even the women were wearing more and more open clothes. Their clothes were also becoming more and more simple and close-fitting, very different from before. The times were changing. Many ancient things were gradually fading away, and in their place was the arrival of a brand new era. This era started from the lowest level of the common people. It broke the traditions of tens of thousands of years and carried out a comprehensive reform in terms of clothing, food, housing, and transportation. Although the country didn't experience any great changes or political fluctuations, the situation among the common people was changing with each passing day. Even Gu Chansha felt that the divine continent of 10 years ago and the divine continent of today were basically different. Back then, he had made his debut in the 14th year of the Heavenly Talisman. Now, it was already the 33rd year of the Heavenly Talisman. It didn't seem like 18 years had passed, but rather 180,000 years. After carefully analyzing this change, the martial sage's heart gained a lot. It seemed like he was about to comprehend something, but that thing just didn't break through. The martial sage wasn't in a hurry, and he didn't force himself to comprehend or break through. Instead, he continued to observe the world. The Xian Prefecture has been worshipping the Great Spirit God for generations. Even if the dynasty changes and the emperor changes, the Great Spirit God won't change. The faith of the Great Spirit God has existed since the primordial era. It can be said that it has completely integrated with the local customs and practices of Xian Prefecture. The martial sage said, "But now, the local customs and practices of the entire Xian Prefecture no longer have the mark of the Great Spirit God." The mobile app was officially launched. 1 million free reading devices. There were offline caching, recommendation, update alerts, and other functions so that you wouldn't waste data at any time. Please follow the official WeChat account to download the app. Mbenhaji, press and hold for 3 seconds to copy. Chapter 724. The Great Spirit God established his faith in Xian Province for generations. Therefore, for nearly 10,000 years, the people living in Xian Province were branded with the Great Spirit God's mark. These people lived in Xian Province and worshipped the Great Spirit God all their lives. After death, they became part of the land of Xian Province. Over time, the entire land of Xian Province was carved, occupied, permeated, and devoured by the Great Spirit God's mark. Gu Chansha and the martial saint observed Xian Province and discussed it. This method of the Great Spirit God is actually extremely profound and mysterious. His management method even surpasses that of the Dharma saint. He wants to occupy Xian Province and possess it. Making Xian Province his avatar is tantamount to possessing 199% of the divine central continent's power. This power is no small matter. He can then extend it and eventually occupy the entire divine central continent. This method is somewhat similar to the divine central continent's 100th layer. However, the 100th layer is a series of other methods to occupy the divine central continent, while the Great Spirit God's method is to penetrate the hearts of all living beings and then use their life and death to permeate the divine central continent. It's a long process, but there's absolutely no risk. Gu Chansha had comprehended something. He discovered that after observing the divine central continent with a martial saint, he had a deeper understanding of the divine central continent. In particular, when he came to Xian Province and discussed with a martial saint, he not only had a deep understanding of Xian Province and the mark left behind by the Great Spirit God, but he also understood the source of the Great Spirit God's hatred for Heavenly Talisman Great Emperor. Originally, the Great Spirit God had operated in Xian Province for nearly 10,000 years. All the people of Xian Province had believed in him for generations. The local conditions, customs, and even living habits were deeply engraved with the mark of the Great Spirit God. Gradually, after 10,000 years, Xian Province and the Great Spirit God had almost become one. Some people had even been possessed by the Great Spirit God. He had only ever seen someone possess a physical body. He had never seen someone possess a piece of land. But in reality, Seizing the body of any of the 99 prefectures of the Central Divine Prefecture would not only allow the gods to gain immense power, but they could even become immortal. The Divine Central Continent was completely different from other places. Since ancient times, it had not only been the center of the land of infinity, but it had also been the center of the space-time turbulence, the ancient chaos, and even the various planes and dimensions. Every inch of the land of the Divine Central Continent contained incredible power and power. If he could merge his body with the earth, he would obtain unimaginable benefits. Even the geomancy formations and burial techniques of the common folk were based on this principle. If they were born in the Divine Central Continent and died there, given a decent burial, they might even preserve some of their spirituality and protect their families. This was actually the reason why many foreign clans had wanted to invade the Central Divine Continent throughout the ages. The Kshetra divine weapon would definitely be coveted. Whoever could take over the divine land would reap great benefits. The Great Spirit God might have been on the verge of successfully possessing Xian Prefecture, but the heavenly talisman Immortal Emperor had appeared out of nowhere, disrupting his plans. His 10,000-year plan was completely ruined, and it happened at the most crucial moment. How could he not hate the heavenly talisman Immortal Emperor? During his travels, Gu Chansha had imparted to the martial saint the secrets of the divine land, the mysteries of the Buddhist sect, his own martial arts comprehension, and even the series of secret cultivation techniques of the Celestial Tranquility Department. He had held nothing back. The martial saint was a man of great merit to the human race, and he had maintained his original intentions. No matter what, he was a reliable ally. That was why Gu Chansha greatly admired such a person. He also hoped that the martial saint would be able to grasp more things and obtain more resources to advance. Moreover, the martial saint's wisdom was extraordinary. He had practically created the martial path for the human race, and his comprehension of the basics of martial arts had far surpassed that of Gu Chansha. As he discussed the Tao and martial arts with the martial saint along the way, Gu Chansha had also reaped many benefits. The two of them traveled around Xian Prefecture, watching the people of Xian Prefecture practice martial arts, study, manufacture, reclamation, farming, and business. They were all very enthusiastic. Originally, every household in Xian Prefecture worshipped the Great Spirit God, and there were large temples dedicated to the Great Spirit God every few kilometers. During the New Year and other festivals, temple fairs would be held in the temples, and big plays would be sung in praise of the Great Spirit God. Basically, many of the martial arts of the aristocratic families were also many of the moves imparted by the Great Spirit God. But in recent decades, the Celestial Tranquility Department had sent people to manage Xian Prefecture, and they began to propagate and educate every household. They had removed all the statues and temples dedicated to the Great Spirit God. Not only did they strictly forbid worshiping, but they even taught brand new martial arts. The Celestial Tranquility Department had created a set of martial arts called the Human Dragon Fist. This set of martial arts went from the most basic to the most advanced, one step after another. Now, it had become popular all over the country. No one cultivated the martial arts imparted by the Great Spirit God anymore. Moreover, under the promotion of the Celestial Tranquility Department, the people no longer mentioned the Great Spirit God, intentionally or unintentionally. Even some of the plays had lost the existence of the Great Spirit God. The Great Spirit God had gradually faded, and he had been sealed in the long river of history, slowly dissipating. This was also the effect that Gu Chansha wanted. The reputation of the Great Spirit God among the people would gradually disappear, and he wouldn't be able to stir up any big waves in the future. As for what the Great Spirit God was doing in other parts of the land of infinity and stirring up trouble, Gu Chansha couldn't care less. As long as he didn't cause any trouble in the land of infinity, everything was still under his control. Xian Prefecture City was now filled with high-rise buildings. The entire city was divided into business districts, residential districts, parks, military camps, school districts, and many other sectors. The roads were wide and spotless, and there were dedicated car lanes and sidewalks. Mechanical vehicles shuttled through the streets, stopping at the side of the road at any time to let pedestrians in. These vehicles were purely mechanical. Some were silver white, some were golden, and some were colorful. They were very beautiful, in the shape of a shuttle, a fish, a snake, a dragon, and so on. At first glance, the streets had a magical atmosphere. However, people had long been accustomed to this kind of life. More than 10 years ago, the main transportation in Xi'an Prefecture City was on horseback, in carriages, or in palanquins. It was very classical, but now it was completely different. These were all new gadgets produced by the Heavenly Craftsman Institute, which changed the lives of the people and the structure of the world. When the martial saints saw this, they all clicked their tongues in admiration. A giant shark-like vehicle whizzed past. The interior of the vehicle was very spacious, and it could seat hundreds of people. It moved as fast as lightning. It dropped people off at a stop, and then let new people in, shuttling back and forth in the huge city all day long. The entire Xi'an Prefecture City was huge. If one walked from one end of the city to the other, it would probably take several days, but only took an hour to sit in this giant vehicle. As the population increased, the city grew larger and larger, expanding outward. The original structure had already changed beyond recognition. The most obvious change was that in the past, small towns, counties, and prefectural cities, as well as large provincial capitals and prefectures, all had city walls to prevent external enemies from invading. But now, all the city walls have been dismantled and expanded outward. There was basically no barrier between the city and the villages. Moreover, there would be large and small mechanical iron vehicles shuttling between the city and the villages every day, allowing the people and goods in the villages to be quickly transported to the city for trade. At the same time, the people in the city could go to the villages to have fun at any time. Such a speed of circulation increased the country's vitality and tax revenue. It also increased the abundance of resources. Hey! When Gu Chansha and the martial saint arrived at the school district of Xi'an Prefecture City, they saw a huge school rising from the ground. Countless students were studying, practicing martial arts, and learning all kinds of knowledge. In a public square, no less than 10,000 students were practicing the human dragon fist created by Jingxian Si. They were circulating their blood and qi, displaying their moves, and their momentum was monstrous. Every student's spirit, energy, and spirit were like dragons soaring into the sky, exuding exuberant vitality. Some students were also discussing on the way home from school. A few boys and girls walked over. They didn't have the slightest bit of restraint between men and women in the past. Instead, they had an open atmosphere. He Tao, how many levels of your human dragon fist have you cultivated to? How many people's strength? These boys and girls were chatting and laughing intimately. They were only in their teens, but they were high-spirited and high-spirited. They really had a youthful ambition and hot-bloodedness, as if the world was in their hands. I've recently cultivated to the 10th level, which is the strength of 10 people. Corresponding to the realm, I'm a mortal realm martial arts master. A boy named He Tao said, "This bit of strength is far from enough. I still want to quickly break through to the Grandmaster realm, and then break through to the Tao realm to kill demons. I heard that killing demons on the battlefield of Xin Province is extremely profitable. As long as we can kill a few goat-horned demons, ox-headed demons, horse-faced demons, and so on, each of them will be worth a lot of money. I want to go too, but it doesn't seem like we need profound martial arts. We can buy some guns and ammunition, as well as flying steel armor, and then we can go kill demons," a girl said. "All of that requires a lot of money. We don't have enough money now." Another male student said, "Actually, it's also because their cultivation isn't high enough. Even if they borrow the strength of the machine, it's not stable." Some time ago, didn't a student encounter a powerful demon who directly tore the machine apart? He couldn't even escape. The best armor and weapons aren't guns or steel armor, but the celestial calming division's human dragon sword and human dragon armor. Once you wear it, 100 evils will be invulnerable. That flying sword can communicate with the soul, and when it flies out, it can slay 10,000 devils. And with every devil it kills, its power will increase. Unfortunately, the human dragon sword and the human dragon armor are not something we can afford. Comparatively speaking, the machines from the Celestial Craft Institute are much cheaper. Of course, you get what you pay for. That's understandable. I heard that the Celestial Craft Institute sells some genetic evolution medicine. As long as one injects it, one's body will become really strong and invulnerable. It is similar to Tao Realm transformation, 3 copper skin and iron bones. Many people have tried it. Should we go? A guy was considering it. Absolutely impossible. That's a crooked path. The boy called Tao immediately stopped him. This is destroying the structure of the human body. Even if you obtain great power in a short period of time, you will have severed your own path of cultivation. You will have to rely on the Celestial Designer Institute for your future progress. This is simply holding a sharp sword upside down, giving others a handle. The Celestial Tranquility Department is still the best. We can continue to cultivate it, and the longer we train, the deeper our cultivation will get. It can also improve our talents. We can't do things that are neither human nor ghost just to get strength quickly. Brother Tao is right. The human dragon fist is broad and profound, and there is no danger at all. Moreover, the Tranquil Immortal Department is still continuously improving it. This fist technique is all-encompassing, and legend has it that it has fused with the Dragon Raising Heart Sutra and the Dragon Making Heart Sutra. With such a divine technique, instead of calmly cultivating it, one would have to be out of their mind to seek some accelerated path of genetic modification. Our official mobile phone's newest reader app has been released. Daily updates, huge amount of content, small size, saves less data, no ads, easy to find. Follow me on WeChat. Jaya Konglishi, press 3 seconds to copy, download app. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.